don't think it looks like the basement, John. Okay. Looks fine.
We're at the top of the hour, so we're going to call it Ways and Means. Meeting to order. First on the agenda is any additions to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any additions. I would like Mr. Thalen, IT Director, to give you some information on the ongoing pilot that we're doing relative to the live streaming.
We just got this equipment in this week, so we've had a lot of time to play with it. But we are live on YouTube right now. We've sent you out the link. Again, it's just a test to see what you like, what you don't like. You've had a lot of time to play with it, but we'd like some of your feedback. When we, for about 15 minutes, you can kind of see how it's working. Both these owls are AI, and the more you talk, a lot of times the more it'll center on you. In probably 15 minutes, once you've kind of looked at it, we're gonna turn the big monitors off. We kind of want to give you a sample of what, what it's doing.
Yeah, that won't affect the stream, but
It's
it'll,
still streaming.
from our brief tests, it's been a little distracting, particularly when I talk, because there's a big TV behind me that you guys are all seeing, so we'll try to make it so. But we wanted you to see what it looks like, and there are some other fine details, assuming this setup remains and you're comfortable with it, that we'll add on and incorporate for professionalism and meeting conduct, so the observers can know what's going on. Primary example is potential for a future for a closed session. We need to, identify how to deactivate the audio on a stream and let everyone know it's still going on. So those are some of the more finer details that we're still working on, or we would be working on.
There are other options, but this is kind of the ground floor option. From here, it just goes up in cost.
Thanks, Craig.
Will it do a better job of tuning into who's talking? Like I'm talking right now and it seems like it's you.
Well, it's delayed. So the video that you're seeing is back when he was talking. It's live, but it's going to be delayed by 20 seconds.
And they are focused on the microphone system, not an internal microphone that they're using. So it assists if your microphone is on. It will tune better if that, like the one in front of Commissioner Fickus is not on. So that would be the one for the both of you.
You can see how you did them here a couple seconds ago. You were the main speaker, and it did come to you.
So should we have our mics on, everybody at one time, or mute them if we're not speaking?
I think they should be left on. I think it was
That's fine.
how our testing made it most effective.
Okay. So if everybody could turn on their mics. All right. Anything else, Craig?
If you have any questions.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Craig. Next on the agenda is limited public comments. Anybody wishing to speak, please come forward, state your name and address.
Ann Hill, 685 Buteo in East Lansing. My question today has to do with funding. We know that on a national level, this administration, the new administration, has been doing some pretty unprecedented things with regard to funding and also with grants. Now, these include grants that not only come directly from the federal government, but could go through the state, into local jurisdictions, and into non-government organizations and others. The actions that they're taking seem to be putting a pause on some of the funding, or also potentially even doing a clawback. So my question has to do with, could we have the administrator on a monthly basis, and perhaps at these meetings, provide some kind of update as to whether, A, any funds that come to the county in any of these methods, whether they are affected, and B, if so, how much, and what is it for? The second thing that I would ask for is that as we go forward, we've got some pretty big projects, pretty big dollar values in the millions of dollars, and we've already had some earlier this year. And I'd like to ask that we be very cautious in making decisions to go forward with that funding, or if they are approved, to be careful about how fast we spend that money, because it's going to take us a few months to figure out if this is just a short anomaly by the federal government, or if in fact it's going to be something that's a little bit more prolonged. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak? All right, seeing none. Next on the agenda is the prosecutor's update. Deb Martinez.
Good morning. The first thing I want to say is welcome to the new faces on the commission. I was last here in November, and I thought I know we had some other commissioners here at the time, but welcome to the new faces, and that discussion was very productive. And I do want to say to everyone who is here and supported the changes for our office that my office has really, really appreciated that, as far as the salary increase for the prosecutors and the increase in the on-call pay, as well as the retention of an outside firm to assist with our post-sentencing appeals. We did get our first decision back yesterday from that firm, and we won. And it was a really violent case involving a man who was released from prison and broke into his ex-girlfriend's home and held her and her child at gunpoint. He had appealed the sentencing on that, had appealed the conviction, and because we were able to hold that after the conviction and argue successfully to the Court of Appeals with the help of Butts Along, who's our new firm, we were able to uphold that conviction. So I do want to say thank you, and your trust and faith in us, allowing us to do that, has helped while we are understaffed and continue to be understaffed. I wish I was here with news that we have filled all our positions, but I'm not here with that. But I am here with good news that there's been progress. We have filled one position for an APA, and he started in December. He came from, very highly recommended, from a circuit court judge in Genesee County, where that judge was doing really, as you may guess by the Flint area, sometimes really high violence and a heavy docket of criminal work. He was his clerk for a long time and said he was the best law clerk he ever had. He has amazing writing skills. We have all been incredibly impressed with him thus far. His name is Aiden Sprague Rice. He lives about 2 blocks here from the courthouse, so he is local. His wife owns a business in the county, and he is devoted to being part of bringing justice for our citizens here. He has some things to learn. We are training him on our district court docket right now and have a transition plan in to move Ryan Madar into some felony work to help ease the burden on Ms. Housefield and I, who are currently doing both felony dockets, our special assignments, which is special victims cases, and narcotics enforcement. And so we're hoping by adding 2 more attorneys, we'll be able to internally take back those post-sentence appeals eventually, and also have enough attorneys that they will be covering felony dockets, and then Ms. Housefield and I will be able to focus on our special assignments and getting through those cases. We are struggling in areas right now, including getting through some warrant requests just due to the lack of the staffing and the amount of requests we have, but we have made a lot of progress since having even a 4th APA involved in that backlog. We continue to work forward on that. Our victim witness unit has been doing some incredible work with victims. At the end of 2023, the law changed regarding the Crime Victims Compensation Fund. And thankfully with Becky and Casey, if you haven't met them, they're absolutely incredible. They are a crucial part of our team on any case. They have been able to recoup over $70,000 for victims. So when we have a criminal case, and even if restitution's ordered for damage that someone has sustained as a result of the crime, a lot of the times the defendants, if they go to prison or don't have the financial means, our victims aren't getting paid anything back for that loss. And this is a way to help them get funds for counseling, get funds for lost wages. We had someone who was severely injured from a operating while intoxicated causing serious injury, and those funds helped him with those medical bills and getting through a really tough time. So their work has been amazing. In prior years, those kind of funds either have not been available or have not been obtained for our victims, and we have really turned our focus in our office to victim-centered response on cases and consulting with victims about what justice means for them and how we can help them through the process. So I'm really proud of their work that they do in that situation. Since I've been here, we've had a lot of cases, but I focused on 3 cases in my report. The first one being People versus Monroe. We had a 3-day preliminary hearing in front of former Judge Clarizio on that. That was the Wacusta matter where the family in May of 2024 was visiting Looking Glass Park and an intoxicated driver struck them and killed 2 of their family members, severely injured several more, including children. The sheriff's office did an incredible job investigating on that case and has been so flexible working with me, meeting to further work forward how we can best get justice for those victims. One of the things that we discussed is at the time it was charged, we charged operating while intoxicated causing death for 2 of the victims and operating while intoxicated causing serious injury. Operating while intoxicated causing death is a 15-year felony. We did some research at the office. I looked into it, and I thought that based on the facts of what the sheriff's office was able to find out about what had been going on in the defendant's life and before this accident, we ran that hearing with the blessings of the family involved and asked the judge to add 2 additional counts of murder in the 2nd degree. Because some of those decisions she made, not only by drinking the amount of alcohol she did, but by also drinking that alcohol while taking medication she wasn't supposed to be drinking alcohol on, her driving as much as 2 miles down the road where other witnesses saw she was already going off the road and knew she was going off the road. And on a beautiful summer day at 6 o'clock in the evening, coming up on a park in May, in an area she was familiar with, knowing that there's no sidewalks there, and that's where families would likely to be out and about on any given day, that it was reasonable, that the judge did agree with us over the defendant's objection and added 2 counts of murder. So we are in circuit court. We will probably not see a trial on that because it will be a approximately 3 to 4 week trial, I would guess, because of the number of victims and witnesses involved, probably till late summer. But if she does not plea, and we will not be resolving that case with a plea absent the victim's approval of any kind of resolution that is resolved, but she's definitely going to prison for a very long time. And if we need to go to a trial, then we have the family's blessing to absolutely do that. So the time, the effort, and the partnership by the sheriff's office and our office was, I think, incredible on this case, and really the job done by everyone, including the courts, by giving us additional days to get through that lengthy preliminary hearing and move their schedule, only benefits the citizens of our county, so I'm really appreciative for all that. The second case is People versus Pohl. This was a case that our now Deputy Chief Assistant, thanks to all of you, Ms. Housefield, tried on December 13th. He has a long history of delivering drugs in our county and around the county. And we did not offer a resolution on this that would, which is what he wanted, to avoid prison. So Ms. Housefield tried the case. She was able to convict him, and he was sentenced to 3 to 40 years in the Michigan Department of Corrections. So that does not mean he will get out in 3 years. That just means that's the first time he would be eligible for parole. But I am proud to say, by the experience level of Ms. Housefield and her wonderful advocacy, that we were able to take someone who has a history of selling dangerous drugs and methamphetamine in our community, and we were able to send them to prison. And then lastly, People versus Wolf was one of my special victims cases. And these last 2 cases are really cases that show why having experts in these areas are helpful in our county with the amount of crimes we have. That was a case that involved multiple counts of a defendant who had sexually abused a young boy from the ages of 9 to 14. He also had just probably the most, I've seen a lot of things in my 24 years of doing these cases, probably the most heinous child pornography that I've ever seen. And he was convicted at trial of sexually assaulting a minor less than 13 years old, as well as all the other counts. And he was sentenced to 25 years to 60 years in the Michigan Department of Corrections. If he gets out in his lifetime, he will be wearing a lifetime tether around his leg for the rest of his life. He will be a lifetime registered sex offender. And one of the reasons I wanted to really thank you for what you did for our office is that the family in this case, even though they went through hell with what happened to their son, having to testify at court, having to hear that information, these people showed up at Christmas time with gifts for our office and the sheriff's office for people who worked on that case. And it was because we couldn't change what happened to them, but because we communicated so well with them over that time, because we cared about what they went through, because they were treated the way they were treated. And that's why when you have specialists who know how to do those kind of cases, why you have enough bodies to give victims that attention that you need to, that it makes something that is a horrible tragedy a lot more palatable than it would be otherwise. So, of course, we didn't want that. Even the grandma came in and made us all Christmas ornaments, which was very thoughtful, but it goes why we are kind of changing how we operate in our office, trying to retain good people and really make the criminal justice system something that works for people in the worst parts of their life. We are continuing also to train, because with 2 younger attorneys right now, that we are able to encourage that continued talk with victims. So next week, both Ryan and Aiden, our 2 youngest prosecutors, are going to a 40-hour training on how to best talk with victims of traumatic incidents, so they can continue that feeling with our office with working with victims. So we continue to move forward, and we do hope with the salary increases to continue that progress of new hires. We have had, since we've raised that, we've had more applications than we did previously, which is a good sign. One of the reasons we haven't hired some of the people we have is because the experience level of those people who applied. We already have 2 young attorneys who we are training, and we can't have all our staff in district court with the same experience level. We have to have a transition plan, which is what we're doing now with one of our attorneys who we think might be ready for the next step. But if we're gonna hire people with experience, we have to do it on a staggered basis to make sure that we're growing people to grow within the roles. And so that is what we're working on. And lastly, Mr. Spagnolo couldn't be here this morning, but he got his prosthetic leg on Valentine's Day, and he is nothing but an inspiration to our office. He's working a modified schedule right now because there are some challenges involved with the rehab on that. But he doesn't want help. He is feisty, he is independent, and he is back at his desk when he can be, and he has helped us by taking back over the juvenile docket, which we were covering in his absence, and relieving me of some of the administrative duties that I had while he was out. And we are really excited to have him back and what his fortitude says for the public. So under his leadership, we will continue to do good things, and he has any of the ideas that Ms. Housefield and I bring to him, he has given us his total support and blessing, so I am really grateful for that as we grow. So if anyone has any questions, I'm
Mr.
happy
Chair.
to answer.
Being the old guy around here, this is outstanding.
Oh,
Thank you
thank
for your efforts as chief assistant. Pass on to prosecutor that once he recovers, we're gonna play golf and I'll have an advantage.
Okay, I'll let him know.
Tom, this is wonderful. Tom, thank you so much for doing this. This is a huge leap from what we've experienced in the last 25 years, so really good. Tom, thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I do want to tell you, I know you weren't here the last time I was here, and
I was, where was I, in Florida?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But I've worked a lot with law enforcement in the area, kind of rebuilding our relationships and partnering, and I do feel that the commissioners was one place we were lacking. So I am grateful for this opportunity, at least every 3 months, to come in and see all your faces and hear what your concerns are and how we can grow and move forward, because it doesn't work for our county if we're battling each other. I want us to be on the same side, and even if we don't agree, I feel like it can be done with respect and civility, and we can talk through issues and maybe come to a compromise. So thank you, Commissioner Showers, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the presentation. You said witness or victim witness program, that there's a staff member to do that, I gathered, and I was kind of wondering a little bit more about them. Seeing how I'm on the Community Mental Health Board, I'm looking at the relationships between our departments and wondering if you could just give me a little bit more context about how those two are working together, and if that person's a counselor, a lawyer, and how they're.
Casey Heckman is our coordinator. She is full-time. So her job is full-time working with victims and witnesses. Becky Miller is a hybrid position. Now, do we wish we had two full-time victim witnesses? Yes, we do, because it's really needed with the amount of work they do. But right now, Becky is part-time victim witness, part-time legal secretary. That's what we have funding for. So she does other duties like subpoenas and things that supplement that. So they're not counselors. Their role is not counseling. They are, Casey has a bachelor's degree, Becky does not, but they are trained by the Prosecuting Attorneys Association and also have certain requirements under the VOCA grant, which is some of the money that pays for their salary out of the Office for Violence Against Women, and the state of Michigan helps supplement that with some funds from the county as well, which we're very grateful for, to make sure that we can retain really good people like Casey and Becky. Their job is immense. So under Michigan law, every victim on a crime, on certain crimes, has certain rights. And by law, we have to advise them of those rights. So every case, which was over 600 cases last year, Casey and Becky have to make sure that all those victims, and that's just victim-based, so that's not cases like drug cases, which there's no technical victim, or a traffic case where there might not be a victim, so that doesn't account for all the cases in our office. But in those specific cases, they have to have contact with every victim and make sure they're aware of their rights, which means some victims want to be very involved in the process, some don't. And Becky and Casey have to monitor that, stay in touch with them. If you ever see them, they constantly have their phones on them because they text with victims, they call with victims. I mean, it's nonstop all day because people are really stressed about the situation they're in, or they have questions that they need to answer. They also provide them with resources. So although they don't provide the counseling, we have established relationships with places like Safe Center, like Eve, with Voices for Children, with the National Children's Alliance, who offers resources for parents who have children who've been victimized. They help connect them with counselors in the area, and they actually will help, like, do you have insurance? What type of insurance do you have? And then they help fit them with the right counselor. When I interview a person on a case to prepare, Becky or Casey is always there with me as a separate person, because there's a part of my job as a lawyer that's very different than the support that Becky and Casey provide. My job is to focus on the law and how in court we can argue it and be successful for them. And even though I do that in a very trauma-informed way, Becky and Casey can also, while I'm focusing on the law part, also focus on making sure, do you need a place to live? Are we working with Safe Center to get you transitional housing? Well, the person who assaulted you, they have concerns. I don't want to go forward. My house is paid for by him. They get them they work with them to find them temporary housing and to help with that transition. They are not counselors, but they are exceptional. I can't tell you how many people tell me they wouldn't have made it through a process without Becky. We communicate with DHHS on cases for children, but they operate separate. They are very logistical and connecting with people, listening to people, supporting people. They set meetings for me with victims. It's quite amazing. I don't know if I answered your question. Do you have something more specific?
The background was most helpful, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
I just want to note that you mentioned that part of their positions are funded by the county, and our HR meeting is after this, and I just want to note for everybody that's here, to clarify, that's the victim rights grant request that we have it
Yes.
to continue to fund
Yes.
those positions.
And that is super, super important. I got really worried with about the things that are going on in the national level, about cuts that are gonna happen, because honestly, my opinion, they're not paid enough with what they deal with every day, and if we're cutting funds from them, I don't wanna lose people, because I could not do my job without those two women. And they don't have law degrees, but I will tell you, sometimes I sit in a room preparing for a big case, and I'm like, can you just come in and hear this for a minute? And they are amazing. The perspective they have from sitting in the courtroom with people, from talking to victims. They are such an essential part of the team that often gets overlooked. So in support of that, that's coming later, I highly hope that you will approve that because keeping them is crucial with what they're doing.
Thank you.
Zach?
For that additional attorney spot you're looking to fill, like what kind of experience, because you're wanting somebody that's not brand new, what kind of experience are you looking for or kind of personally looking for that kind of role?
Ideally, in my perfect world, it would be someone who has prosecuted felony cases before. Because if you're not familiar with what a felony is something punishable by anything over a year in jail. So those are gonna be your more serious crimes. And there are different rules with felony trials, different rules with discovery than district court. These are your heavier cases, and the consequences therefore are more severe. So someone who has navigated a trial docket, someone who's done felony work is gonna be a plus. We've not had, well, no, that's not true. We had 2 people who applied who had experience, but because the market is so hot right now, we had them scheduled for interviews. Before we could even get them in the chair, another county hired them. So everyone is digging right now for people with experience. Everyone is. So we are trying to move really fast, but we're ideally someone with felony experience.
Deb, I have a question.
Sure.
So is the challenge why we're losing some of these premier candidates? What are a couple of the reasons why they're going to a different county?
Honestly, I think because some of the bigger counties have the advantage because of where they're located, I think is more attractive to some of them. Like, so we lost to Kent County. Well, that's the Grand Rapids area. You know, if someone's like, oh, I'm gonna choose between Grand Rapids and St. John's, I think St. John's is lovely. I love it here. But someone might wanna go to Grand Rapids, you know, and be in that area. So a more rural community might not be as attractive to someone depending on what they're looking for or where they're living. Like that particular candidate, though, actually lived in Holland, which is closer to Grand Rapids, so that makes sense. So it's geographical. I happen to know because my husband works in Ingham County as a prosecutor, that they have lost 18 people in the last year and a half, 18 APAs, and most of them have gone to the state, to the AG's office. Holy moly. So everyone is hemorrhaging APAs and looking for good people, but the state is scrapping them up because they can provide higher salaries. I think our salary is good. Our bottom for an APA, what the commission did, is higher for new attorneys coming in. Our top right now in an APA is 105, which is also really good, especially compared to other counties of our size. It's still not as high as like Ingham County and the state, but it's okay. It's okay, and it's good. And I think we will get people. I think we went through the holidays, and that was a little tough, and we're getting Aiden up to speed. We look at every application that comes in, and we're still talking. Aaron and I both have friends who have been interested, but I think are afraid to make the jump, and we're really hoping over the next quarter that some of those people might make the jump to come over here that we know who are good prosecutors with what we are able to offer now.
Great. Thank you.
One, I just want to thank you for all the good work you guys are doing and filling us in on what's happening. I guess the only question I have is the amount of crime that's in Clinton County, is that stabilizing? Is it going up? Is it going down?
I will tell you that both the Clinton County Sheriff's Office and DeWitt Township have hired new officers. So I'm unclear if it's the crime level or only because we have more officers on the road who are able to intercept that crime, but we do seem to have more warrants. I've been doing every weekend on call, and over the past 3 months, I've had more warrants than I had, you know, in the 6 months before that, on the weekends. And our in custodies on the morning, every morning during the week. Anyone who was arrested the night before, who's in our jail, we have to review that case. It's been pretty consistent, more than usual. So I will tell you that definitely, I think the extra bodies on the road are helping, especially on drug cases. A lot of more drug cases coming through, which is great that we're getting drugs off the streets. So I don't know how to answer your question, Commissioner Andrews, whether it's more crime or more officers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so
hard
it's
to
tough,
say.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, if we have no police, we're not gonna arrest anybody and there'd be no crime. Well, there'd be crime, but no one would be paying for it, so, yeah. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Dwight?
I'm not sure how this question fits, but are you able to get a sense or a percentage of like how many of the people who go through our courts go into our jails?
You mean as a final sentence?
Yeah.
It's more than it used to be, is my feeling. It varies based on the case circumstances. If someone is a first-time offender, depending on the crime, they're likely not to go. If someone is a habitual offender, they're likely to go to jail. In circuit court, I've seen a lot of one-year sentences come from Judge Barkman and Judge Schlegel, if it's not Michigan Department of Corrections. Our circuit court judges are not shy about incarceration, or incarceration for people who've been given the opportunity to be on probation and not go to jail first, but then either don't stop using or commit other offenses or don't take the privilege of probation and rehabilitation appropriately, that they are getting sent on probation violations. So I would say, I can't give you a percentage or a number. I would just say the more serious the crime and/or the longer the history of the particular person involved, they're more likely to go to jail than first-timers who made a bad choice, learned from it, and are going on probation without going to jail and are succeeding.
Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you, Deb.
And how
Thank
often
you.
are you coming?
What's that?
How often are you coming
I'll
to?
come as often as you want me to come, Commissioner
It's
Andrews.
very informative, and so.
It's up to you. I mean, we could come, I can come on monthly. Right now, it's every 3 months.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Quarterly is good.
It's good, yeah. Quarterly's good. That gives us time to bring stuff to you too.
There you go.
Because with all the cases we have, you never know how many trials we'll have in that given time or who's away at training. So thank you all for your continued support, and we appreciate all the work you do for the county.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you, Deb.
Thanks.
Next on the agenda is Drain Commissioner Phil Hanses.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Phil.
For those of you new to the board, this remonumentation stuff is an annual thing. I need to come to you to appoint a county representative. That would be Mark Powell. He's been our county representative for, since 2020, I believe it is. So he's been doing a good job for us, so I would recommend that we reappoint him as our county representative for 2025. And also, myself as the county grant administrator. I've been doing it now, this is my 10th year doing it, so. I got other information in the packet. If you have questions on that, feel free to ask me on those items. Do you want to take care of that first, and then the second item about the peer group?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and, there is a committee action item here, so it's requested action is to appoint Mr. Powell to 2025 remonumentation grant representative and Mr. Hanses to the 2025 remonumentation grant administrator. That's a mouthful in the
Don't
morning.
feel bad, everybody does that.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
All right, and the second issue is appointing peer group members. The peer group members, they serve as a committee to review each other's work for the survey work that they do, and then bring them to the remonumentation peer group meeting. They review and then approve them, and then once they're approved, I send them over to the deeds office for recording. So each of the peer group members I'm proposing this year, Dave Clifford, Jeff Autenreith, and Jonathan Feisey. Each of them served last last year and did a good job. Dave Clifford has been with us for as long as I can remember, and Jeff Autenreith has been past 5 or 6 years. So I would again recommend those 3 individuals serve as our remonumentation peer group for 2025.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
You have one more, Phil?
Yeah, I think there's one more, Phil.
So the next one's, it's kind of a standard thing when we're borrowing for a project. In this case, it's the Kidd Drain. We were petitioned a couple of years ago to make improvements to that drain. And so we've gone through that process. We had our bid opening yesterday, so I'm finishing up our computation of costs. But as part of the borrowing process, banks, we can get better interest rates in theory because we have a full faith and credit resolution by the county. So what that does is it provides secondary backup or secondary security that the bond or note payments would be made in the event that the drainage district should fail to make their note payments. And that's never happened. Actually, it was at a drain conference last week, and one of the individuals from Dickinson Wright said, you know, it's kind of a formality because never has there been a default from a drainage district to make their note payments, but it does help the lenders have an additional level of security to make sure that they're gonna get repaid. So in this case, the resolution was drafted up by Joe Kalani from Clark Hill. He wrote not to exceed $200,000 in that. It looks like we're gonna be about $150,000 is what our computation of cost is gonna be on that. And I will be assessing that probably over 5 to 7 years. And as I said, we had our bid opening yesterday. Our low bid was Lloyd's Excavating at $104,000. And the computation and costs includes other things for like borrowing fees, interest, supplies that we're providing. We're providing culverts in this case, so they have to be figured in as well. So it's interesting. We did get 7 bidders with the average bid of $237,000 and the high bid of $384,000. So we did really well getting a local contractor. He lives about 5 miles away from this site, so that was one big advantage he had. So, and we did speak with him following the bid opening, and he is, you know, looking forward to getting the work done. He wants to get moved in there as soon as possible to get started. So any questions on the resolution? I know some of you folks are new here and you may have questions. So.
You're gonna make a lot of people happy, theoretically.
Do you know
By
what?
spring.
Yeah, do you know why there was such a range there between the low and the high bid? I mean, it's fairly substantial.
That's a good question. I mean, Lloyd Peck, he does a lot of maintenance work for us, so he's familiar. He's really familiar with tree clearing, and there's a lot of trees. There's like 36-inch diameter cottonwoods growing in the bottom of this drain. So he's been, as I said, he lives nearby, so he's been looking at this project for a long time, and so he has a certain advantage over others that have bid. So, but yeah, I mean his excavation prices are generally quite a bit cheaper than others, and it seems to be always that way when he bids on projects.
I move to approve the resolution. As stated.
Any second? Support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you all,
Thank you, Phil.
and welcome to you new folks.
Next up is information technology, Craig Phelan. Good morning, Greg. Good morning.
Do you want to talk about anything more about the?
I guess just any early observations, I suggested maybe we can leave that on or we can turn it off if it's distracting to you, but obviously it would remain being streamed for others, and then obviously would be available for you to go back and review on YouTube at your convenience and provide feedback, which we will, incorporate into the future planning. It appears, it serves the purpose and the intended purpose. I mentioned we made some temporary measures. There are some other improvements relative to the YouTube itself that we would incorporate if we're moving and continuing to move in this direction. So it's entirely up to you how you want to discuss it. If you want to continue to observe, or we can shut it off and continue to, at least, again, for your purposes.
I'll leave it at, not heard anything.
Just the lighting through the windows, like when you look, when sometimes the camera turns and the blinds they're pretty bright as a backlight. So
That is blind, even I can't see you.
some lighting, I don't know. Any suggestions?
It's such a rare thing to have light in anyway.
So would we like to leave the monitors on, or do we find them distracting, or?
Mr. Chair, I feel like we're moving into the 21st century, it's all good, so.
Okay.
I was here when the days when most people would have been totally unable to cope with this, so it's nice to be more modern.
We'll plan on using it then on Tuesday?
Oh, yes, I'd like to, yeah. And again, live stream.
Mr. Chair, get some like lion stickers for the inside of the white curtain here, it'd be nice,
All right.
And I know people will be able to comment though, but not live.
Right, that's what we're setting it up to do.
And
Not comment through the YouTube channel.
Right. Not.
They would
not-
provide comments through the other means, through the county clerk or to you, not via YouTube, no.
So people typically, I think, put comments after they watch the movie, like great movie or great TV show or great video, but that's not available.
Those comments are currently turned off. It would, from all of the other local units that I've seen utilizing this similar setup, it is typical. One, it creates additional public records for retention purposes, and it's not two-way in terms of the communication, so it's generally determined not to be of benefit to the legislative body in that format. Obviously, there are other means that the public has to be able to communicate. Sure.
any other questions? All right, I think that's it.
All right, the next one is our JABS equipment upgrade. I've checked with Chief Judge Sullivan. She still likes the equipment. It meets all of her needs. We have very few problems with it. So since she's in court, it's up to me to get it approved. Normally, I always have a department head sitting here next to me. I take care of all the technical specs. And then the department head takes care of all the functions. She makes sure it's gonna function the way they want it. We normally try and do that a year ahead of time, so that way we can put it in next year's budget. Next year's budget comes along, I'm here to get the JAVS upgrade approved. Once it's approved, we go in, we install it, get it working, and then we turn it back over to the department head. So, once that's all done, they go live and off we go. The JAVS system, it's in 4 courts. There's 2 in district, and circuit and probate are the other ones. It records all the video and audio of each court case. If there's a request for transcripts for a case, the audio and video is then sent out to a transcriptionist. We don't usually do much of that anymore. Used to be back in the day, we'd have that person, if you ever watch those old court shows, they're sitting in there with those little machines. Once they started to retire, we put in these systems. You don't see many transcription people around anymore. So these kind of took their place. The first ones we put in was already back in 2005. So some of the equipment, the cameras, they're not even making anymore. So the vendor called me and said, hey, you gotta replace everything. So now we're gonna go through and do a whole refresh on these. They've just outlived their end of life. Once again, if they don't have an official recording, if that equipment's not there, they can't have court. So it's, important that we have that equipment upgraded and running. Again, Judge Sullivan is checked off on it. She's happy with what we have and what we plan to do. So, I think as I said, the project was put in last year. It is part of the 2025 budget, and we're ready to move forward now. So I'm just asking for the approval of the 225 to purchase the equipment.
All right, so there's a recommendation for approval up to $225,000 for purchase of new court recording systems for the 4 courtrooms. I believe that's probably about 56.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I have a question. So right now, all the equipment works, it's really
Yeah.
just to make sure that if something goes down, you're not gonna be able to replace it.
Right.
The court will not be able to
Yeah,
operate.
I have a spare camera, so we can put a spare camera in. I got spare mics, so I could put one in quick,
Yeah,
but that's not the way, once that one's gone, then I'm done.
gotcha.
So it's time to upgrade.
Any other questions? John? No? All right. Do we have a motion? Second? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you, Greg.
I'm gonna give you this one.
With me. Good morning, everybody.
Hi, Deb.
Deb?
Okay, so our first request is to update the software that we are using currently to maintain, index, and image all of our vital records, meaning our births, our deaths, our marriages, assumed names, DD 214s. So our current software, we've been using it for over 20 years now, and it doesn't offer us a lot of functionality. So we are requesting the approval of a contract with Tyler Technologies to upgrade our system to the Enterprise Records Management Software. We're currently using a Tyler product in our Register of Deeds office as well. So we think that this software is going to create a lot of efficiencies for our staff and for our customers as well. So that is our request for the clerk's office this morning.
Any questions? Is Tyler Technology part of Munis?
Yes, yes.
No, Munis is part of it.
Well, yeah, yes. Munis is also a Tyler product.
Okay,
So we use a Tyler product in the Register of Deeds office as well. It's called Tyler Recorder, and then we use Tyler Munis
okay.
as our accounting software.
Because I know there was talk with the, I believe it was with Eric, regarding seeing how BSNA is going to work out for another county that's gonna be using this here later this year. And if that is something that our county may be moving to BSNA, they also have an accounting feature there also. Is this something separate, or is this something, I guess what I'm kind of getting at is I don't think we should be, if we're gonna be moving on to a different platform or using a different software, how does this play?
To my knowledge, BSNA is strictly accounting, tax. I'm not aware that BSNA has any products as far as imaging, indexing for either the clerk or the Register of Deeds office.
Okay.
I'm not aware of any of
I'm not aware either.
That's my
yeah.
Okay. All right, so the requested action from us is permission to apply for,
You gotta get in this.
I'm on the wrong one here. The requested action to authorize the clerk to enter into a agreement with Tyler Technologies for 5 years
I'll make the motion.
for, okay. I was gonna say for $81,531 is budgeted in the capital improvement for 2025. So we have a motion, we have a second, any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And then the next request is also, it's the Register of Deeds Tyler product that we're using. We are requesting that we upgrade that to a cloud product. They're no longer going to be supporting our current system, and so we really don't have a choice here. We do have to update, and I think Craig can take over here.
This is a common theme. Everybody's moving their stuff to the cloud. This isn't new. We do investigate. We do want to make sure that the product we get is mature. We don't want to be the first on the cloud. We don't want to be the last either. But we normally check that. Are there other counties using it? Do they have any problems? And once we decide that, hey, it's mature, everybody's happy with that cloud product, then we sign the contract. So it's coming. Every product we have, it'll be in the cloud within 3-4 years. It does cost more to be in the cloud, but that's just the way the market is going. There is a benefit to having it in the cloud, you know, in case something happens here, we have a malware attack, our network becomes compromised. You can get to those apps anywhere, so I can send people wherever. So there are some benefits, you know, just from a cybersecurity aspect. I'm actually not as, there's not as much pressure for me to be on the cybersecurity piece because it's in the cloud. You know, they're responsible for it at that point.
I have a question. So does that mean that if the internet went out in this building, that would not be, you know, somebody needs to access those records and somebody hits a pole?
We've thought of that, and we've actually put in 2 different lines, one in the back of the building and one in the front, 2 different vendors. So we've tried to alleviate that, you know, that problem. It is a concern, but that's why we've done stuff like that, is to put some redundancy in so we don't have that. We know it is a weak point.
But we don't store, you know, the question is, do you have like a hard, you know, it just seems like it'd be nice to sort of back that up on property every now and then. I don't know if that's an option.
They take care of all the backups, you know, your cloud provider does. They probably won't even let me back it up.
Oh.
It would just cause bandwidth issues because now I'm trying to do something that we've already contracted them out to do. So yeah, if it goes down, you know, we're gonna be down. But we have the same issue here. We have servers and hardware and equipment here. It could go down also. We don't have that often, but there's always that something that could happen, and we try and prevent, you know, by making redundant paths.
But even if you had it all here, when the internet went down, it wouldn't matter. You wouldn't be getting it from here either.
Right.
So,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because it'd still be electronic.
right. And everything goes through, well, I don't know what the software is here, but most of it, you're needing internet access to be able to get to where you want to go. So,
It's coming.
and having 2 different lines, that's a really good idea.
Motion to approve the request.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you for that as well. And then the last thing that I have is permission to apply for a grant. Stephanie actually discovered this grant through the State of Michigan Electronic Recording Commission in the amount of $12,000, and that's being offered to upgrade existing real property e-recording capabilities. So this will maybe help offset some of the implementation costs for the cloud in the Register of Deeds office.
Okay, the requested action is permission to apply for a new grant through the State of Michigan Electronic Recording Commission in the amount of $12,000 to upgrade existing real estate e-recording capabilities.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Deb. Thank you, Greg. All right, next is Facility and Fleet Services, Rob Wooten. Morning, Rob.
Good morning.
Hey, Rob.
First up, we have got the maintenance building expansion. There's $8.5 million budgeted in the 2025 budget for phase 1 of this expansion. There was a phase 2 expansion out in the 2043 long-term plan. At the request of the board, we included that Phase 2 scope as a bid alternate on this bid to see what the price would be, and it looks like that was probably a good choice. We received 4 bids, all in with 2 alternates. They were all within about 8%, which is good to see. That means the scope is pretty accurate, understandable. I think they're all bidding on the same thing, same understanding of the scope. So including that Phase 2 alternate and a second alternate, which is some additional resurfacing of asphalt that will be in that area. The low bid was 4.37 million. So with additional costs, it would be 6 million to complete both the Phase 1 and Phase 2 portions at this time.
Mr. Chair, if I will. So this 6,000 takes care of both of those items, and and the money has already been allocated in our budget.
It is available in the capital improvement fund and identified as a major project.
And your administration is good at this.
Based on the planning and the master plan and the bids, including the late addition of consideration of the Phase 2 planning or Phase 2 construction, yes, I think it makes sense.
Mr. Chair, I'd make the motion to move forward with it. Or, have you read that part yet? Suggested action, whatever I'd make that motion.
Yeah, the suggested action, well, do we, second?
I guess, how much do we have in the CIF right now currently?
Hold on, second and discussion, go ahead.
How much do we currently have in the CIF?
One moment, please.
Thank you.
You guys just don't know these numbers off.
Not all of them. Available.
Available.
The fund balance. Excuse me. Should be able to find it quicker than that. Excuse me, projected at the end, or excuse me, projected at the end of 2024, we had 23.5 million approximately. Thanks.
I have a question. When you contract with the contractor, are there assurances as to the quality of their work? Meaning we've had some things in the past that perhaps weren't up to snuff. So if we invest all this money and for some reason the contractor's work creates a situation that's gonna cost us more money, are there contract assurances that protect our investment?
Yes, we will use the standard AIA contract, which is standard for large construction projects across the country. The architect and engineer have to review the work, sign off that the work meets the spec before we will pay their pay application each month.
Any other questions?
When, this seems to be going on since I got here, when do you think everything will be wrapped up?
Construction should be done. We should be moved in by the end of the year.
Does this leave us any extra room for additional acquisitions?
It gives us a little bit of extra space at this point.
And how's that space gonna be used or utilized?
At this point, I mean, some of the space will be for the facility and fleet department, some will be for parks and green space, some is for the drain commissioner's office, some for the sheriff's office, and some for emergency management. So realistically, there'll be a little bit of room for growth in each of those areas, and over the next few years, as we see which department needs more space, we can kind of adjust that as necessary.
Where, I'm sorry, but I don't know where this is at. Where is this located?
It is just north of the jail.
Okay.
So on the Townsend
Oh.
campus
Okay.
jail.
Good thing you don't know where it is, John. That means you know where the jail was, which,
Yeah,
When you come to your jail tour, we can hit everything.
yeah, I'd like that. As long as it's just a tour.
Lot of visit.
Tour the jail last in case, yeah.
Thank you.
I guess kind of broadly, like, just looking long-term at the scope of different projects in the near future, if you had to prioritize what's urgent, what's not urgent, I mean, is this kind of on an even level with everything else kind of that we're looking at long-term? I'm just thinking about the jail conversation and how this plays into that.
In the capital plan, I believe the jail is still listed as the first priority. This is listed as the second priority for major projects. I think that's still accurate, but obviously that one's gonna take a bit more planning and discussion.
If you've never been to the maintenance facility, they are packed to the gills.
yes, they are.
I mean, they have no space left. And this, I think, would actually help our facilities. The Drain Commission has stuff at the Road Commission. It's spread all over the place. It gets everything in one location for hopes of tools and equipment sharing, that kind of stuff.
And it also assists in the protection of the investment in all of that equipment, specialized equipment relative to the sheriff's office, relative to drain office, emergency management. So it's an important investment in its own way, but it goes beyond just the cost of the facility in terms of protecting the county's investment broader for all of the, it's
One thing I think that we always got to consider too, it's next year it's just going to be more expensive. If we don't do it now, we wait 5 years, it's going to be probably twice as much, especially with all the tariffs that are going in, getting supplies and equipment, and it's not going to be good.
I'm really glad we decided to throw that second phase in there just for an idea. I mean, if we can get, and still 2.5 million under budget, it's, personally, I believe it's
Is all this equipment and stuff housed in there now, or is it in different locations and we just need to bring it together?
Yeah, it is all over the county. Some of it's outside. Some of it's in fire departments who have been loaning the county space, but they're running out of space now. Some of it's at the road commission, but they don't have running water there, so the drain commissioner can't wash their equipment. So this would, yeah, bring it all into one place that we control. We know we're not gonna lose that space. We've got the resources we need to maintain that equipment rather than letting it sit outside or go unwashed.
What?
Last time you were in here, I asked about an energy audit of sorts for the jail. And for this one, I'm wondering, do you foresee any energy efficiency or cost-saving, energy-related features with this building?
As a pretty basic building, there are minimal, energy uses. It'll be minimal heat throughout the building, minimal HVAC in the office side. As part of the project, we will replace some old water heaters, some old furnaces, and update those to the latest, most efficient. So we will gain some efficiencies there, but we will also add additional usage for the additional square footage.
Any other questions? Well, we have a motion on the table to approve up to $6 million for the maintenance building expansion project. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next up is furniture replacement for the planning and zoning and building department suites. That furniture, like most of the furniture in this building, is 24 years old. That product is no longer manufactured, no longer supported. So repairs or modifications are difficult or impossible to make. This will replace all of the furniture in that suite to allow for more efficient operations of what is now 2 separate departments operating in that space.
Does that include like desks and everything too, or, okay?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I thought you had more. So the requested action is to approve up to $100,000 of available capital improvement funds for new furniture for the planning and zoning and building departments. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Well,
We didn't have a motion.
I didn't
Oh,
hear,
there
I
is
didn't
no
hear a
motion?
motion, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sure, write us down, it's okay.
All right,
I'll
do I have a
second.
motion?
Okay, there you go.
Second.
Thank you.
Sorry. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I have one more question for you.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Last month, we approved new plumbing for the jail, and I just had a question. In the new design, it was noted that plumbing on the outside of the cells is preferred. So theoretically, this plumbing is gonna be replaced. If there's demolition, all the new plumbing will be ripped out. In the event that a new jail does not pass, or, just a safety sort of plan, has it ever been discussed to theoretically put the plumbing on the outside of the cells as the new plumbing's being installed? I mean, just like, what would be the extra cost? I know it's a loaded question.
That would be incredibly difficult based off how the current jail is built. The way that new jails are built are totally different. The cells are steel, pre-manufactured, dropped-in-place cells with a plumbing chase built around the outside. In the current jail, the plumbing fixtures are in the middle of the cells. It's all masonry, block wall, and some of them you couldn't get around the outside. So that would be a very large remodel to do that.
Gotcha, thank you.
And theoretically, if we went that route, it would be a repurposed building and not necessarily demolition, correct? Like it could be repurposed for, okay.
It would likely, new construction would probably be cheaper than trying to do that in the current building.
Do you want to have further discussion? I mean, I think we should probably wait for the end, because that's something that's not on the agenda.
Can we take a 5-minute break?
I have that written down right here. Say break, yes. We will recess for 5 minutes, and we will reconvene at 10:11 in 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir, appreciate that. Yeah. I understand the numbnuts part, but
I'll get you after.
Okay. All right, we're reconvening here. Next item on the agenda is the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority. This is an insurance recommendation. Would you like to,
Oh, never mind. It's just delayed.
oh. John, you have-
Yes, I was asked to include for discussion the updates that occurred in 2024 to the Fairgrounds Use Agreement regarding liability insurance coverages. The, as indicated in the memo, the recommendations included changes in the recommendations for liability insurance coverages, which also included consideration for coverage for events that had special or unique hazards incorporated in them. So this was requested, I believe, Commissioner Rudat, you wanted to discuss that. I don't know what specific questions you have. I did ask Rob to stay. He helped update and revise the Fairgrounds Use Agreement in connection or in coordination with myself and MMRMA. So happy to discuss any of the aspects or answer questions as the committee has.
I guess, so the recommendation of the 3 million policy coverage as opposed to 1 million that came directly from MMRMA, or what, I guess, that's kind of most of what, I was at the County Farm Bureau meeting and that conversation had come up about how it was, used to be 1 million and now it's 3 million and just.
Yes, the recommendation as they were included in the updated agreement, the ultimate recommendation for the 3 million that was, and I take a step back, I'm assuming you're referring to the mid-festival situation.
The rodeo, yeah.
Yes, that was based on the risk matrix that was included, recommended by MMRMA, that it did include additional coverages that reached a total of $3 million in coverage. Oh, and I believe last year there was some discussion amongst the board about whether that they were comfortable or wanted to modify that recommendation at the time. And again, the discussion was centered on one specific event, but the recommendations apply to all uses at the fairgrounds, so.
I guess I could comment a little bit about it. It was set as far as risk, and I guess I'm not afraid to say it, the rodeo was assessed as a high risk. Personally, it's not out of line. I mean, we contacted them in regards to what our rates should be, and with the explanation of the different events that happen there. And this is really what they'd set up for us. I don't, being that they're our insurance carrier, I don't think we should reduce what we're requiring, because this is their recommendation. That was that's my 2 cents worth from last year. Anybody else can throw it in.
I'd be happy to. The thought was is that we should insure the rodeo, and it's not our job. And we explained to them, there was a lot of emotional conversations. And we learned that in years past, correct me if I'm wrong here, Bruce, we assumed that the managers of the event, which organization is that? The
Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce, and they said, we don't have any liability insurance for rodeo. And so we were, I don't know why that happened, but it's not our job to insure events because the event provider can't find insurance themselves. It's kind of like, should I pay for your auto insurance? It's not our job. And of course, that rankle people who like the rodeo. I'm not against the rodeo, but if you want to have a rodeo, you pay for it. It's not the job of the county to insure somebody for an event that's one time a year. So, some people are upset that, they didn't have the rodeo. My response is, you can have the rodeo, just buy an insurance. And that's what this all started from, so. And most, as some of you know, who are in government or business, we always ask for someone to give a certificate of insurance and putting us on that policy. What we're asking is not something that's nefarious nor unethical or uncommon. It happens every day. That's where this all started from. And I was comfortable with the fact that if you don't have the insurance writer to give us, then don't have a rodeo. It's real simple. It's not a matter of whether we're good or bad, it's just business. And so that's where it came from.
I think at the time, it was felt we were picking on the rodeo, which we are not. We can't pay for the rodeo's insurance.
That's right.
I talked to them directly and said, we can't cover it. The county can't. I suggested raising ticket prices because they said they couldn't afford it. Again, we can't insure an event at Smith in the parks, in the fairgrounds. That, okay, there's a lot of people that come into it, we understand that. But me personally, in my business, I have to carry liability insurance. And I get asked for it all the time. It's just normal.
Do we, this isn't the right place for this question, but do we have an idea roughly like what that cost difference is between a 1 million or 3 million policy?
Back then, we heard different dollars. I did not go get pricing myself. It's not cheap. I mean, don't get me wrong, but a promoter should be carrying liability insurance for year round.
Exactly.
So it should be relatively easy. I know what mine costs, and it's not cheap. But
May I say too, that opens up Pandora's box. If, Mint Festival hears that we're taking care of it, and then the DeWitt Actual says, oh, you gotta insure us now. No, it's not our job. That's, suddenly the, what I call the blinder effect is people assume that the world ends in St. John's. It does not. It's in Watertown, it's in DeWitt, it's in East Lansing. If I was one of those officials, I'd be at my door saying, hey, you did it for the rodeo, you better do it for us, and that's not our job.
Yeah, and I guess my question wasn't necessarily whether or not we cover it, but more so just revisit what the mandated coverage was for something like that, I guess.
When did we get the coverage, the insurance, the 1 or 3 million? Oh, that was last year?
that was last year, yes.
When we inquired about what, is that still adequate for today? Would that be less? Would that be more? Can't imagine it being less.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand, quite
So
understand the
$3
question.
million liability coverage today, since this was done sometime in the past, is this adequate coverage for today, or would it be less? Would it be more?
Actually, we just received, I think it was last month, an updated manual with guidance, and there had not been a change. So, I mean, that would still be the recommendation based on, again, we're having a discussion about this specific event, but the use agreement was not designed to be limited to just that, one event.
So would this be something maybe the promoter could subsidize a certain amount of
Yeah,
it?
I mean, there's.
Incorporate the other costs, maybe like in the ticket price? Or?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing stopping, if somebody's wanting to host a space, they can raise money toward, I was more curious about kind of the context of the history of how we landed on the 3 million and
Sure.
if there was any desire to
And
revisit
again,
that.
that's a recommendation, and again, it was discussed with the board last year regarding, whether it had a greater risk tolerance, which would mean that you would require less in terms of a certificate of insurance, and there was not interest at the time, but that, it would be up to the board to, modify that recommendation.
Mr. Chair, what is our general liability coverage for liability issues now. It's more than 3 million, I think. We have a $150,000 deductible, as I recall.
$150,000 stop loss, yes.
Yeah, then after that
On
is,
individual, excuse me, liability occurrence, I believe, is 2.5 million, but I'm speaking off the top of my head. And again, the agreement requires the county to be named as an additional insured for those coverages based on the risk, so.
and the 3 million is what our insurance carrier says we should ask for.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
I guess the only other kind of somewhat related to this, but like right now on our rental policy for anything on the fairground space, it looks like we have a designated rate for nonprofits that are I think it's C5s. Is there, if somebody's like a C4 or a C3, are they eligible for that nonprofit discounted rate as well, or is it just specifically C5, or I guess?
I don't recall without looking specifically at it. I'll have to research that a little bit further. Do you remember, Rob?
It does say 501c3 specifically can receive that reduced rental rate. The insurance requirements would still be what they.
Right, yeah, this is a little bit of a separate, but I guess if it's specifically, if the rental rate is for C3s, could that be expanded to include C4s and C5s, I guess is my only question on that front. I don't know if that would require board approval or if that's just a decision by.
Well, if it's limited to that within the adopted agreement or the approval of that policy, yes, it would require the board to amend that. But again, I did not review that rate provision at all before this morning, so I'd have to look at that a little bit further.
Well, the question would be then, if we do it for Joe, and then we want to do something different for Sam, I know you're not saying that, but I think the final arbitrator is our insurance carrier will tell us what they think we should ask for. And if we start to take action that goes against that, it's not the right word, but my brain is there. We may be opening ourselves up to some coverage issues or coverage if we, in fact, don't follow the insurance company's recommendations. They could, I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but you may say under a letter of understanding that we're gonna take an effect that you chose to go against our wishes. So if there is a lawsuit, that might damage our coverage. So I would say we need to go with whatever the insurance carrier tells us.
That is correct, consistency in terms of how those requirements are applied.
Does the insurer provide, oh, sorry.
The question I was responding to, I thought was limited, was regarding the rental rates, not
Yes.
the insurance.
Oh, not the
So,
insurance, oh, okay.
Okay, so,
Right? Any other questions, Zach?
Nothing.
All right. Thank you, John.
thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob. All right, next is Waste Management, Kate Neese.
Did they give you a lot of heat at the Cranberry about that?
Morning, Kate.
Morning.
I guess. Andy called me on the phone, chewed my butt out.
So, first up is the quick and easy one. It's a property use agreement with our host site for our fall collection. It's an annual agreement. They've already reviewed it and made the recommendations, so I don't know if anyone has any questions about that between the county and Granger.
I just moved to approve your request. It's a great event.
Sport.
Thanks.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, and then next up is our materials management plan. Again, this is a up to 3-year process that was initiated last year by the state of Michigan. All 83 counties need to come up with a new management plan for all solid waste materials, including recycling. We are working closely with our consultant, GT Environmental, and based on Eagle's format, some help from Oakland County, because they had put together a very dynamic document. And then with our planning committee, this is our work program document. When we submit this, it also acts as a grant application for Eagle. Eagle is providing grant funding for this process. It's a reimbursable grant. So there's a budget sheet tied to it as well that our consultant worked with our department to help put together. So it kind of goes part and parcel. Once we submit the work program document, it acts as our grant application. And then we just had a webinar with Eagle, all of the designated planning agencies, myself included, to discuss the grant process. Eagle's still hammering out all the details, but it involves, a contract. I'll be working closely with Cindy Mosier on that. But yeah, so we're just asking for permission or for a recommendation to approve the document and then apply for the grant.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Is composting and garment reuse part of your plan, sister?
Composting, yes. I think garment reuse is too far into the weeds, like it's too specific of an ask,
Gotcha.
so.
To be able to effectively.
Right, also household hazardous waste isn't directly addressed in this, and that's something that we do twice a year. There's a lot already to do, but there's a lot more that could be included. I think they're just the state is trying to put together something that all counties can achieve based on resources statewide.
Thank you.
And there's no matching funds?
So that was one thing that came up in the grant webinar yesterday. No, we do not have to provide matching funds now. We are unique, if you compare us to our surrounding counties, in that we have a recycling and waste management department and staff. So that is literally part of our job description, is to manage our solid waste management plan or materials management plan. That's what our department does. So we're able to internalize a lot more costs than, say, Shiawassee County, that doesn't have any recycling programs that's funded or even supervised by the county. They don't have a staff person, even part-time, managing anything for their solid waste management plan. So we are in a unique position where we don't necessarily need the grant money because we already have funding and staff available, but we are definitely going to use it because it's available. Yeah.
The only other comment I'm gonna make is I'm gonna abstain from voting because this involves my employer.
Eagle? Okay, fair enough.
Any other questions? Dwight?
As I'm looking at this management planning timeline, it
Yes.
goes to this year. It's my
Yes.
understanding that it's adaptable from year to year.
Yes.
Are you
It's a
looking at-
working document. I cannot stress that enough. Like, this is the pie in the sky, I hope it works out timeline. But we all know how these things go. And we are still waiting for information from Eagle. Like, they're literally putting this together as we're moving through the process. So this will change.
Is there a 5-year timeline? Or are we doing this year by year by year?
Right now, it's annual. The first year to kick off is definitely a 1-year plan, but our consultant is aware of a multiple-year timeline, so I can't say that they don't already have something mapped out. It's just not in the document form. Eagle wanted us to do a 1-year per year plan that we will resubmit next year, annually, at least the first couple years, or until our plan is approved. Again, details get a little murky the further out you go.
Any other questions?
No.
No questions. Do I have a motion to approve the material management plan, work documents, and authorize the grant application?
So
with
moved.
Eagle? Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? I do abstain. Motion carries.
I'm always available to answer questions too, so please don't hesitate to reach out. I love to talk trash, so.
Thank you, Kate.
Thanks.
Yes.
That should be like a button on
I
you.
know. Recycling Kate, talking trash. I need to go on the podcast. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up is Parks and Green Space, Kyle Thornton. Morning.
Good morning.
I think it's still morning. Yes, it is.
Yeah. I come to you guys at the February 7th Parks and Green Space Commission meeting. I took to them a grant from Consumers Energy for the Plant Grant Foundation, and coming to you, looking for authorization to apply for this grant for Clinton Trails Passive development of native prairie land and trails. This is a non-match grant, and it is for $250,000.
So moved.
Support?
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you, Kyle. All right, next up is the audit engagement letter and terms and conditions. John?
Yes, included in your packet is the engagement letter that I have been presented and am sharing with the board as required under auditing standards, defining what the scope of the auditors that are currently under contract, which is Raymond, for the audit of the county's financial statements, December 31st, 2024. And just pointing out, the current engagement cost is estimated at, I believe it's $35,650, not to exceed. There are potentially, additional costs associated with, what I refer to as major programs under the single audit, which is the audit of federal funds, which, I don't think we will have a major program this year, but not based on my estimates, but so that is potential. They also noted if there is need for additional testing for new financial reporting requirements, this one specifically related to the accounting and reporting of compensated absences. There may be additional work or additional costs associated with the testing related to that, although we have been in conversations with the auditors on developing our calculations that are required under that financial reporting standard, and we think we are in pretty good shape in that regard. With the requested action with your, with the committee's approval, would be for myself to enter the audit engagement letter in advance of the planned field work to commence March 10th.
Do I have a motion to accept the audit engagement letter from the firm Raymond Robinson, or Robinson, for the year ending December 31st, 2024?
So moved, Mr. Chair. I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Next up is the opioid settlement advisory steering committee update. John?
I'm going to turn that over to Todd. He's leading the work in this area for administration.
All right, you're up, Todd.
Good morning, Commissioners. As you can see from the memo, you may recall the Board of Commissioners established the Clinton County Opioid Settlement Advisory Steering Committee, it's a mouthful, to review and make recommendations for awarding opioid settlement dollars that the county has begun receiving as a result of a number of court settlements involving manufacturers and distributors of the prescription opioids nationwide. The steering committee developed an overall strategy that focuses on four main areas: prevention, treatment, education, and recovery of those dealing directly or indirectly with opioid addiction. And on the second page of this memo, of course, is the sheet, the multicolored sheet, and that talks about the areas for potential funding for programming and plans. So the plan is for the administration to send out an RFP, request for proposals, to various entities, organizations that would provide programming and plans that would fall under one of these four strategies of the prevention, treatment, education, and recovery. So we've met twice, the steering committee has met twice, reviewed things, and so the RFP is ready to go. The the timeline would be March 1st. These RFPs would go out March 1st with a deadline of April 15th. And then get those back. The steering committee would review those, score those, and then bring back to you all for recommendation for awards. And so that would be in May. And then with the, if everything goes smoothly, the awards would begin July 1st. And this first round would go actually for 18 months rather than a year, just so we could get things squared up with our fiscal year. So the first round would be from July 1st, 25 through December 31st, 26. And then after that, it would be an annual, again, still RFPs annually. Could be for continuations of ongoing programming or new ones that come along. And you know, who knows what, but this is for through January 1st of 2040. So that's the amount of money, because the funding we receive on an annual basis is for over an 18-year period.
So we have received these funds?
Some of them, not
How
all.
much have we received?
3 point,
No, to date, we've received, I think, approximately 950,000. The total expected under the settlements is the 3.8.
I'm sorry, yes, thank you. Yes.
3.8?
3.8 million, yes.
And this is an annual,
The terms of the settlement agreements, the distributors have, there is not a set payment schedule. Reason why we've received a third of it over the year and a half is one of the defendants funded 7 years' worth of their settlement funding in the first year. So it's been one of the difficulties in terms of planning is determining what the cash flow is going to be relative to the program cash flow. So we were fortunate in that regard that one of them did pre-fund a portion of its settlement.
so who has custody of the funds now, the state?
No, the county has custody of these funds.
Of the 950?
Yes.
But the subsequent, whatever less, you know, 2.8?
Those payments have not been made as part of the settlement agreement by the distributors.
Okay, all right.
So how much,
Those are still receivable over the next 18 years.
how much has the county received?
950,000 approximately.
And that's just being held in the general fund?
No, the Department of Treasury required a separate special revenue fund for the accounting for the opioid settlement.
Also it's being held in the escrow, okay.
But you mentioned 3.8.
That's the total based on the current settlements, yes. Oh, I'm sorry, 3.3 million. Thank you, Todd.
3.3.
And that's over 18 years?
Yes, a total of 18 years.
Is there still a possibility that we could get more money?
There is a possibility. There are, I believe, at least one defendant. I think I believe, I don't want to speak inaccurately, but I believe it's Purdue Pharma has not reached a settlement because of the other legal issues that are associated with that, bankruptcy associated with that. So to answer your question, yes, there is potential for additional funds, which would be subject to the same requirements theoretically for the program spending.
What is the expectation of where the funds will go if all of this grant money is not given out this year that we do have?
Actually, the task force discussed that, and there's a proposed funding schedule that provides a consistent level of funding, actually with an inflationary factor for growth. So the county will not need to allocate and or appropriate all 950,000 for this year. The intent, Todd, do you have that number? Actually, the first year programming is
179.
projected to be about 179,000. And again, over the remaining 16 years, because we are delayed in getting this implemented, provides for a consistent level of funding, again, as I said, with an inflationary increase to maintain programming. What we wanted to avoid, or the recommendation to the advisory committee, was we wanted to avoid setting up programs that were not sustainable over time with the level of funding that we have or would receive. So that's why that funding strategy was developed the way it was.
Mr. Chair? Have we seen what the task force would like to spend the money on? I don't recall seeing a document that says, in case somebody asks us on the street, say, hey, your county, you got a lot of opioid settlement money, I wouldn't know what to tell them as far as what we're going to potentially do with it. I could always give them your phone number, Todd.
Oh, certainly.
I've been giving it out for a lot of reasons.
I don't need it today, but at some point, it'd be nice to see some kind of a,
Yeah, so the strategies, which is included on the second page.
I see the strategies. yeah.
Right, so we have a request for proposal,
Okay,
and so can't necessarily have an exact idea, because we haven't received any proposals yet.
okay.
We're expecting proposals to come in that will reflect, at least one or more of these.
May I say that once you guys reach that point, at a Ways and Means meeting, make an agenda item to explain to us succinctly, executive summary, I don't care about all the
Yes.
detail. That'd be helpful.
Certainly.
I mean, the expectation will be that will occur in May, correct, Todd?
Correct.
Great, okay, thank you.
Because I'm sure some of these areas, depending on the utilization, will determine where some of the money would flow. There's some that may be more needed and less needed, or maybe some wouldn't be used, or.
Right, and
You may
it'll depend
find
on the providers, right?
Yeah.
And what services they provide.
Exactly, yep.
I have a question.
Yeah, Nicole.
Can we get a copy of the RFP when it's available?
Sure.
And are there quality metrics in this? Meaning, how are we gonna understand the impact of what we award? Is it doing what we intended for the program to do?
It does, the RFP does include proposed reporting and performance measures.
Okay, good.
I have a few more things.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I don't know how many board members have read the community needs assessment, but I just would encourage anybody to go on to that committee and read the needs assessment. And the two things that stuck out most with me was that there's a reason people have a substance use disorder, and there's overwhelmingly percentage of time it is concomitant with trauma, behavioral health, and mental health. And people noted that it's just not a problem that's necessarily recognized here in the county. And as well as just really needing that hand-holding from a corrections standpoint when they come out of jail, and I just wanted to make that note. And secondly, I guess I don't have this up. I'm looking at the sheriff's office and the departments of the budget, and there is a line item here that is for correctional programs, that is to provide activities to increase the chance of rehabilitation, such as programs for education, substance abuse, parenting, anger management, and psychiatric services. And if you look at the summary, those are considered NA across the board, and I just hope that these funds can start to address, some of those things as the policy changes will be looked at this year in Corrections Department. Hopefully when our grants come in. One more thing, sorry. It was also noted from the Mid-State Health Substance Use Disorder group that naloxone funding can be found elsewhere. It's abundant, so as we hand our grants out, funding for the naloxone, that's not necessarily, we could use our money elsewhere, as that funding is available through the state and a lot of different places. Go ahead.
As a city member on that committee, I would say that the design was really to target the people who are in the field doing the work, and to really encourage them to, if they're gonna need money to do jobs that are not being met right now, or services that are not being met right now, they can ask for those services. So if you might wanna make sure that when the grant comes out, that, each of you have social services agencies that could benefit from this, then you wanna let them know to apply. So it's really, it's right now, this round seems to be a way just to kind of supplement the needs that our working partners do have already.
To expand on that, Commissioner, we have been working very closely with Liz Braddock from the District Health Department, who has been a godsend in her assistance she's provided to Todd and myself and the committee. And that will be the initial primary focus of the distribution of the RFP is through the networks of human service agencies. And then obviously other varied measures, but the first will be through the Substance Use Disorder Coalition, the building stronger communities, coalitions, and those, getting the RFP in the hands of those human service agencies.
Excellent. I'd like to add too, real quickly, though, that MAC, Michigan Association of Counties, was really instrumental in helping Liz and other counties put this opioid strategy together, and that's something that we've supported for years, and they were very helpful in this case. One last question, please. The money that we get from this, are we able to like use that as a match for other grants to be applied for?
There is an administrative limitation under the settlement agreement of 15% that can be used for non-opioid administrative costs. It may fall under that category, even if it were be matching a opioid-related grant. However, I would emphasize at this point, the county has not recommended utilizing that 15% for non-opioid related programs. The current planning is that 100% of those funds will be delivered and provided for programs and services. The other aspect to your question, I would have to research a little bit further to see if that would still be considered an opioid use as a branch mat to another program. I could, but I will, but I don't know the answer specifically yet.
I'm a little bit concerned with the quick timeline and turnaround for this, and think maybe not that many grants or requests will come in, so it'd be nice if that was an option, particularly if we don't meet that threshold.
We will follow up on that certainly. The July 1st anticipated or projected start date for the contracts and programming, that is it's not set in stone. Obviously, that's the priority. We want to start utilizing these funds because, as you'll recall, settlement funds did start being received by the county, I think, in late 2023. So we have had these funds available, and this planning process has been slowed down a couple times by external factors outside of our control. So we use that objective to start to get the money to the community for those needs. But it is not it's a self-imposed deadline is what I'm saying. So if there's insufficient response, it could be addressed.
Good question. Any other questions? All right. Moving on to the next item is the approval of the Clinton County Open Meetings and Events calendars for March of 2025.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is the accounts payable invoices, paid totals. John?
Excuse me. The detail list is coming around. You have also had an opportunity to review that before the meeting. The requested action is to approve the paid payables for the period identified, January 4th, 25 through February 7th of 2025.
I do have a question. I did review them and I was looking, so it appears that we paid $50,000 to LEAP. Is that a
that is the
first installment?
50% installment of which is the third year of the agreement that we have in place for the county-specific economic development services.
Okay. And so I have a couple questions. So what sort of have they provided any as of?
Actually, I included in the packet as part of my administrator's report is a monthly, agenda item 16 is a monthly report that I receive on the services that I've provided.
Yeah, Yeah, I did read through that. You know, I noticed a couple of things. I saw the video for Clinton County. I was a little surprised by that. You know, they didn't show much on the agriculture side. I didn't see any tractors in the video, any farmers. It was just,
I was not involved in the production of that. That was something that the LEAP undertook.
yeah. And then, also, there was another, item in here. Oh, it appears that they hired a new representative for our area.
I believe they have started within the last 2 weeks, yes. That was the individual was previously, that position where those services were provided by Jacqueline Hutchison. She resigned and they have been in the process of refilling that.
So was there a time frame between Jacqueline's resignation and the hiring of this new individual? And if we were paying funds to LEAP to support this individual?
The services, in my communications with LEAP, the services that were being provided, they were being covered by remaining or existing staff. Emma Bostwick was providing the coverage for the county services.
Okay. And this agreement that we have with LEAP goes through?
Current expiration of the agreement is December 31st of 2025.
I'm sorry.
December 31st of this year.
Of this year, okay. Somebody have any other questions?
I have questions about that, but I don't know if we want to wait till we move on to that report.
Yeah, well, this was more of a question related to the account, the payables in here, so. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the accounts payable and invoices?
I'll make the motion.
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, next on the agenda, well, I know we have the HR coming up. Do we want to hold on any commissioner comments? Can I have do I need a motion to?
We're good.
Okay,
Whatever you decide, Mr. Chairman.
yeah, okay.
That's like another potty break. Can we do that?
Yeah, we'll do that. Yep, exactly. Administrators report. John?
Sure. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First report, or first item I'd mention is that I'm sure you noticed that there was no planning commission update on this morning's agenda. Planning commission meeting is scheduled for this evening, so we do not have any actions to report yet. As far as the agenda, there is one special land use permit renewal that the planning commission will be considering, and a recommendation will be presented to the Board of Commissioners on Tuesday. And given the short turnaround, I know Todd and staff have the intent of providing you the evaluation and recommendation by the end of the day tomorrow. So please be aware that you may be receiving an email late tomorrow as we.
So there wouldn't be any kind of ordinance change in that, it would be just.
There are no ordinance changes or rezoning applications before the planning commission this evening. It's only a special land use application. The other thing, I would just go back and reference the comment from this morning regarding federal funding status. That the committee know that it's a daily task at this point trying to keep up with what's going on with the federal funding. We're actively monitoring and reviewing impacts of executive action changes at the administration level to determine what the local impact will be. As I said, it changes at this point on a daily, sometimes hourly basis. I will, as information becomes available and we can actually assess what direct impacts may be, we will provide you ongoing and updated information. And the other thing, we touched on it a little bit related to the monthly report from LEAP. The only notes that I had that I was going to mention was that LEAP assisted 5 local communities in pending MEDC grant applications, those including DeWitt City, I believe it was, Bath Township, Ovid, St. John's DDA, and Eagle Township. And they have also been coordinating, working with a developer, potential housing development with Mishta in Elsie, the proposed redevelopment of the middle school. They have been acting as a liaison between the developer and Mishta. That's all I had, unless there are questions on that or anything that I did not cover.
So at this point, there hasn't been any big impact to us on the federal activity yet?
Not at this point. We received early indication that there was some funding that was on the emergency management and homeland security programming. We received communications from the MSP that those were in limbo, and by the following morning, there had been clarification that those were not affected. And we continue to monitor and receive information from the state agencies that that they are past heredity for, but it has been ongoing.
I have a question. Did you?
I think Dwight was first.
That actually did answer some of my questions. I was kind of curious as to your information line and where you're getting information with all these changes taking place, and you did speak to that a little bit.
Multiple sources. I mean, we actively participate in MAC, in their informational podcasts that they have. Those are on a weekly basis. We receive direct communication from our granting departments at the state level. And we all are also considered a contractor for the federal government, so we do receive some limited communication directly from Department of Treasury.
And if I may, one more question quickly. Have we had any information follow up about the court case regarding solar ordinance and whether the
Not since my update last month, where there was
Stay of
Yeah, Foster Swift had filed for a stay of accepting applications on behalf of the participating municipalities. That was rejected by the court, and it was emphasized in the communication that we received that that was not a decision based on the merit of the arguments. That was just a procedural step as far as what the MPSC was able to do in terms of accepting applications or not. That's the last update that I received, sir.
Thank you.
Nicole?
I received a question from a resident who's fabulously here, in regards to the LEAP line item of a renewable energy project in Bingham. Is there any information that we know as to what that may be?
It's a solar arrays. Myers, as I recall, forgive me for, Meyer Thrifty Acres owns a bunch of ground out there, and they either have a contract or we're going to enter into a contract with a solar company to put solar arrays someplace off M21 there. And that's all I know. I don't know if it's dead, if it's, where is that?
I apologize, I'm not seeing, there it is. I don't recall the details on that one, I'm sorry.
All right. I do have one more question about that report. Sorry about that.
Are you all right?
No, the Trek Small Business Support, how do we get more information about that? That is listed on there as an attempt to engage smaller businesses.
That one was promoted directly by LEAP, as I recall, and that one, my next monthly update, I will coordinate with the new staff member to provide updated information on that.
Thank you.
I did have a, Mr. Chair, if I could.
Go ahead, Bob.
When you're, I don't know where you find this out at, we find it from someplace in the state. It is likely that ongoing funding for green energy projects will cease from the federal government's perspective. The ones that were in place, which we have nothing to do with, but the ones that are in place, has that funding been stopped? That's the question. Because I know that there was I think that might be the one that Commissioner Fickus is talking about, was a 1,400 acre, if I'm not mistaken, I could be mistaken in the number, solar array that they had come to us. I think it was our ESA, is that the name of the company? And we said, we're not gonna change our current ordinance that we passed, worked so diligently to work with for the last couple of years. And they subsequently went to the state of Michigan, up to the MSPC, is that right? Yeah, to bypass us. So that, in my mind, generated a question, okay, that's Clinton County. How many of these current solar projects are out there, if in fact there's a place to find this out at, I don't know that, have the funding in place? Because the rumor mill is, depending upon which political party you talk to, that, you know, communism has taken place or dictatorship, and the other side says, oh, wonderful, wonderful. I don't care about any of that nonsense. Who's getting money and who's not? That's all I care about. So if there's a way to find that out.
Based on the information that I've seen or the information that I have, I think that's an unresolved question on what the status of those
Okay.
projects is by and large. And if I could just clarify one part of your comment, you are correct, it was ESA, I believe. Now, there may be a new RWE, they
Oh, new name? Okay.
acronyms. As part of what they need to do to pursue a project under Public Act 233, they are required to meet with the chief executive,
Yes,
Commissioner DeLong.
right.
He and I did have that meeting, middle part of January. Now, before they can apply, they have not applied yet. They are required to have a public meeting somewhere in the affected jurisdiction. I have not received notice of the scheduling of that meeting for them yet. So, if they are pursuing an application, there are still steps that they need to complete before they're able to do that. And I'm not involved other than receiving notice, so that may still be in process.
I'm with you. So my assumption is that whatever their name is, they've already applied for money, which has nothing to do with us. So maybe there is no place to find out if they got it or not. I mean, all these solar companies or turbine, whatever they're called, they would have done their own request for financing separate from us.
Correct.
So if there's no way to find out, there's no way to find out. But it would be interesting to see if it was in fact available in place, do they have the money in hand? And all of the MSPC stuff is perfunctory, has no meaning. In that regard, I think we got the funding to do it, and they have all the legal reasons to do it. Doesn't matter what Foster Swift thinks. Curious, just curious.
I don't have anything else, sir.
Oh, you don't, no, I'm sorry, it's rhetorical, I know you would. But in answering the commissioner's thought, that's the only one I could think of that was still floating around out there.
All right, any other questions? Bruce?
No, that solar is the one I think I reported on last month.
Yeah, I did.
Well, I guess nothing would surprise me. I think it would be hard pressed that the federal government would give them money up front.
Yeah.
But who knows? I don't know. And I've heard nothing more.
Even if they did, if a grant was awarded, there are clawback provisions, and if the federal say seek to, I mean, some of it could be a draw, some of it could be reimbursement on the grant. The federal government can still say no more spending, and even if you have the funds, you would probably have to most likely return those, if that was the case.
I think you're right, that helps. That should answer your citizens' question, so.
Yeah.
But I don't think that solar and wind is gonna go away. I mean, Gratiot County, they had wind, and over in Sebowing, they had wind long before there was all this money that was gonna go
Yeah,
to renewable energy.
No doubt, no doubt, but my question was financial, not political or processional. I get that, that's, you know.
So I still think there's gonna be companies that are gonna want to do renewable energy in Clinton County.
Sure, it would be nice to know if any of them got the money yet or not. That was her, I think that's your citizen inquiry, is what about that being a project? That was the only one I could think of.
Is that referring to the Walker Road project then?
Yes, exactly.
Which they'd be expanding to that Meyer property along 21? Is that what the?
At one time, I think I was confusing there. At one time, we were told that some of that property on M21 or just off, wherever, that's owned by the Meyer Corporation, where I shop often, by the way. Had entered into a contract with a solar company we're going to, and LEAP was trying to encourage them not to do that, so we could put buildings there that actually pay us something, so that's all I know.
It's private real estate, that's what I.
Yeah, that was the property that I asked them to
Yes.
please move that,
Right.
because they had some property. Their development goes Krups Road North, I think, and it goes along the edge of the freeway
Yeah.
and under the freeway some. But that's the property that was out here is that I don't think we want them putting solar on, being that it's prime commercial development. And they had other property they could use that they've got leases on, so. But I don't know what LEAP had involved in that, I don't know. So,
I had a question for Nicole. So I was talking with the township clerk in Duplain Township about Foster Swift invoicing them.
Yeah.
Not just once, but twice now. And I'm not quite sure exactly what agreement they went into with Foster Swift. I don't know if you knew.
From my understanding, they thought they were simply volunteering for, you know, the contribution, you know, at that meeting. And so I am not aware of,
That was my understanding too, and, yeah.
I don't know if there was any other action taken by them. They made it seem like there was very much not anything that they did, and this was very much a surprise to them.
Yeah, I had a question. Oh, has any of the 10 townships, have they, sent in their share of the $5,000?
They are awaiting invoicing.
Oh, from you or?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
The county to date has received invoices for approximately $1,600 in total. So I have not,
Foster Swift?
yes, so I have not, for the sake of reducing the amount of paperwork and tracking down $10 checks, I've been holding it.
I hope they're giving more than $10.
You said 1,600 or 16,000?
1,600.
Yeah.
But even 1,600 divided 10 ways would only be 160, so.
Yeah.
But my point was, I haven't done it just because of the timing and.
Yeah, I was just wondering if they all agreed, they were each gonna share like $500?
I have not received complete information on what their local funding commitments are, so.
Because we voted on it, and they all agreed, or at least the ones that were there, that they were going to.
Go to their board and get some
Right.
approval, so yes.
Right, so we're just still waiting.
Yeah, again, that's, administratively, I haven't done it yet.
Because they were very adamant that they wanted this to go
Yes.
through.
And they were citizens who were gonna make that recommendation to their government, local government.
Well, yes, that as well.
Yeah. I didn't know if maybe you could find out,
I mean, I can certainly,
see where they are.
yeah,
Thank you.
Could a request be put in as well in regards to how did DePlain receive an invoice with Foster Swift?
Yeah, and what?
Because they
what
got
was that?
$1,200 just for them.
Well,
Yeah, and then there was another
I mean,
invoice as well.
I can do that, but I would assume Duplain has done that as well, since they received an invoice, and if they don't have a current relationship with Foster Swift as counsel, I'm not sure what basis they would have to do that. So, but, I mean, I can follow up, but I don't know what information I'll
I think that would
be
be,
privy to.
they would appreciate that.
Oh, sure.
Thanks for bringing that up, John.
Yeah. Everybody wants to talk to you, John.
I'm sorry.
Everyone wants to talk to you.
All right, I'm considering that, any other business, so is there any other business that we would like to discuss at this time? All right, then I will consider us adjourned,
Motion to adjourn, don't we?
or motion to adjourn.
I have to, Mr. Chair, you can just adjourn us.
I can?
Yeah,
Oh, then we're adjourned.
Okay.
I've done it in the past. I know Bruce did the same thing. I just adjourned us from up front there too.
Yes,
so.
there's no more business.
Nicole, that's up to you.
No more business here.
Yeah, please, great, yeah. Give me one moment.
Oh, yep.
Thank you.
Is everybody ready to start? All right, let's call this meeting to order at 11:22, Human Resources Committee. Any additions to the agenda?
No, ma'am.
All right, perfect. Any public comment? Once, going twice, okay. First thing up is prosecutor's request for the Crime Victims' Rights Grant. And Ms. Martinez did a great job of explaining what that was for. Basically, this is just another, we have done this in the past to supplement the grant, allowing this person to work at a full-time level.
Yeah, she described it a little bit differently than I would, but there, one of the individuals, Becky, she's part-time, 50% towards crime victims' activities. As indicated in the memo, our state grant allocation was not sufficient to continue to provide that at 50%. We did request an amendment to get additional funding. It was not approved. We received notice. I did discuss the shortfall, with Mr. Spagnolo. He obviously prefers not to have that individual work fewer hours on crime victim activities. And an additional 14,000 in general fund support would be necessary to maintain that 50% equivalency for crime victims' activities of this individual. So that's what I am requesting on the prosecutor's behalf, that the the general fund budget for the prosecutor's office be increased by 14,000 for this year.
Any questions?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Fabulous. Perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is the interim managed council administrator.
Yes, this is the program, the MIDC program for indigent defense. We have a administrator. The position is vacant. Again, it became vacant on February 7th. Begun the process to recruit a full-time replacement, but in order to, as it says, maintain compliance with the MIDC, we need to have an interim administrator. There are requirements that under the statute only a licensed attorney can perform in making the appointments, as well as reviewing and approving the assigned counsel invoices for services. We've done this previously with Mr. Pellerito when there was a vacancy. He indirectly caused this vacancy. He returned to practice a while ago. So I have identified a member of the current roster, Ms. Bernstein Underwood, who is willing to step in on a short-term contractual basis to do that while we fill the position. So I'm requesting authorization for a contract for an interim administrator.
Any questions on this?
What do we have in the budget? Is it about one?
The grant budget, or for the grant budget this year, 1.1 million for the MIDC grant.
Have we ever thought about bringing that indigent defense office into the county?
There have been discussions, I know, in the past. I had that, followed up on that discussion with the courts and the, when Mr. Pellerito did leave. I think what you're asking is creating a public defender's office?
Yes.
There has been discussion, it's not been pursued, and my largest concern at this point would go back to the conversations and discussion Ms. Martinez had with regard to recruiting for attorneys to go into the public sector. And obviously this position needs an attorney to fill that. Based on, I don't know the exact staffing model that would be required, but rather than trying to recruit one attorney, we'd probably be recruiting like 4 or 5 attorneys. But it's something that could be explored again, but it would not alleviate the need for this contract. I mean, if the I don't know that it's viable here. I can certainly take a further look at it, but.
Just a question.
Yeah, no, it's been looked at before, and actually I had that conversation with our regional grant administrator, when this vacancy was occurring, and she said, her response to me was, at the moment, I don't know that I would really recommend any of the counties try to stand up a public defender's office currently in the hiring environment, but, it's certainly something we can look at again.
Thank you, John.
To address
Yes, sir.
my fellow commissioners' thoughts, when we started that, has it been 4 or 5 years ago, that was, the question you asked was addressed. And what our administrator says, that was one of the problems, trying to find staff. Our prosecutor, who's been suffered through COVID, not his fault, caught into a labor market, not his fault. Imagine trying to do that with a public defender's office. It was just so chaotic. That's 4 or 5 years ago, that's when we decided to go with the, what do you call it, the interim, what do you call this?
Assigned counsel
Yeah,
administrator.
Because of the chaos that would be created by trying to find people to fill that office, so.
Okay.
And believe me, at the time, every prosecutor I knew, particularly from the Michigan Association of Counties involvement, I don't want to be political here, but the law that was passed to have that happen really caused them damage. You know, they're trying to do their work, prosecutors are, and what everyone's feelings are about the ACLU and that whole bunch, that made the prosecutor's job 10 times worse than it was before. Do I believe there was defense abuse? Sure. Do I think this solved any problems? I do not. So, and poor prosecutor, what are they supposed to do? You know, they're doing their job and they're getting bad mouth for something they had no control over. So, anyway, I'm off the subject a bit, but at any rate, so we did address, your point's well taken, it was addressed because of what our administrator says. That's why we went the other way, so.
Thanks, Bob.
Any other questions? Or interest in making a motion or the recommendation?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Support? All in favor?
Aye.
Next order of business is the sheriff's request.
Yes, and Sheriff isn't available to be here this morning. I think he had a chief's meeting this morning, so I am requesting on his behalf consideration to start 2 new deputies to fill vacant positions, commensurate with their experience level on the pay scale, rather than starting them off at the entry level. I selected candidates, one that has 6 years of experience and another that has 2 years, and he would like to recognize their experience and ensure that they will come to the county and not have to take a pay cut. And the one with 6 years' experience, he would like to place at the top of the pay scale, which would be commensurate with the experience. And then the one with 2 years' experience, he would like to hire them at the 2-year step of the current contract. There is a letter of understanding or agreement in place with the Road Patrol Union to provide for this at the sheriff's recommendation with the approval of the Board of Commissioners, so.
I would like to make one note, and from what I recall, the sheriff's office has a lot of steps. Excuse me.
Should we get an ambulance?
In the hiring process, such that the lowest is pretty low when you look at the comps around the county, but as you go up, we offer a very, a competitive wage. And so, the low is really for people who have no experience, just to get somebody in the door. Is that?
That's true.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion to recommend approving the sheriff's recommendation.
So moved.
So that's support, reverse?
Oh.
Support.
Oh, sorry. I was still on that you were running it. but-
All right, all in
Sorry.
favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Next is a Parks and Green Space request.
Oh, he is still here.
All right, Kyle.
Hanging out in the back.
Was that on purpose, Kyle? Hang it back.
Was. Good morning again. come to you guys with a request to increase the park manager position from $13 an hour to $13.50, with the minimum wage going up February 21st, which is tomorrow, to $12.48. So our park rangers will be going up to $12.48. So to increase the park manager correspondingly as well.
Move the recommended action.
I'll second.
Perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And I would just say, I'm sure all of you have heard that there's potential changes to the minimum wage law before midnight tonight, I guess. But to my knowledge, all that has been discussed does not affect the increase on the wage to $12.48. So that will obviously go into effect tomorrow for the ranger position to comply with the law.
Next on the agenda is the Health Alliance update.
Yes, we have continued to utilize the Health Alliance to make health insurance recommendations to the Board of Commissioners. That group, Commissioner Fickus has joined us on that, and hopefully hit the ground running with what we're dealing with. Currently, we utilize Acrisure as a agent for our Blue Cross, as well as a consultant for the third-party administrator services that for the health insurance program. Based on the initial feedback that we've received, we're likely going to be subject to a significant increase in our health insurance premiums. So we started exploring potential options, both short-term and long-term. And the result of these options and discussion and recommendation with the Health Alliance is that we consider changing agents from Acrisure, where we have been with since 2010, to Gallagher Benefit Services, to reduce administrative costs, assess both short-term and long-term alternatives, including self-funding potentially, self-insurance, and/or long-term, the possibility of pooling our health insurance with other public employers. Similar to what we do for MMRMA, there is a health insurance pool that was founded about 20 years ago, primarily in the public school sector, but they have grown in size and types of employers to include, in addition, more than just public schools. That's not really a short-term option because we do have a upcoming May 1st renewal. And in order to consider the pool, we'd have to figure out a way to switch to a January 1st renewal. So that's part of the long-term evaluation and assessment, as well as looking at the renewal for May 1st, 2025 in terms of the coverage, which likely will have potential changes recommended for your consideration in April in terms of the health insurance coverage itself. But that we still need to review and discuss with the Alliance to make a recommendation.
What I would note on this topic is that the current contractor or consultant, whatever you call it, they came back with a 22% increase and said perhaps a 15% increase would be about the best they can do. And from my understanding, bringing in Gallagher would provide additional options with pharmaceutical costs. They are able to choose different formularies where Acrisure was not able to do that. And they also have access to the other models that Acrisure did not have access to. Just note.
No, thank you. That is all correct. This is additional options. the unfortunate piece is that, for all of you that have been on the board, you familiar with the increases the county has continued to pick up or incorporate the first 3% of the cost increase on the health insurance program into its budget. Any increases in excess of that have been historically shared between the county and the employee population through employee contributions. So the initial discussions is that we're potentially looking at the need to significantly increase employee contributions. This obviously is to minimize that. I wish I could say likely eliminate the need to increase employee contributions, but given the unresolved changes to the hard caps and then the requirements of Public Act 152, the increases in those maximum contributions or allowable costs for employers only increased by 0.2%. So I don't know if we'll stay under that to be able to maintain the current level of employee contributions, regardless of which agent and administrator we utilize.
I just want to make a note, I did receive a comment from the Victor Township Treasurer. She asked if flex spend accounts could be used at all to help us with the reimbursement, since we reimburse deductibles and things like that. Is there any way to navigate putting some of those reimbursement funds in a flex and spend account and invest and sort of play that?
Yes.
That is not part of the recommended action, folks. If anyone would like to entertain a motion, I'd be obliged. Or are there any questions?
So, I don't know anything of what you guys have been doing, but my office, they didn't raise the amount that the employees pay, but they raised like the deductible from 5 to 6 and things like that, and that how they, I guess.
I mean, those will potentially evaluated because the increase in the deductible obviously reduces the cost of the premium. However, what's different in terms of our current coverage is we also have an HRA program that the county does reimburse down to essentially to pay those deductible costs. So one of the things that we have discussed administratively is that rather than making that full reimbursement, we increase the threshold that the employees would be responsible for. Again, that's not a recommendation, but it is a subject that is on the table at administration.
Is the county capped as far as how much the portion they can pay, like a percentage up to?
The county is currently below the hard caps, although I reviewed this in preparation for this morning's meeting. In 2023, we were 14% below the hard caps. In 2024, we were 6% below the hard caps. So at that trend, we will likely exceed what the hard cap amounts are, again, given the increase that was built into the statute that provided the 0.2% increase. Now, local units are not bound by that. They can opt out of those requirements. It requires a 2/3 majority to do that, but the county does still have the ability to consider alternatives in terms of the amounts that it provides towards employee health insurance. And it was unprompted, but I appreciate you bringing that up, because depending on the level of increase that may be required, in order to not affect overall employee compensation, the board may be asked to consider to opt out and provide some incremental increase that would not fulfill the hard cap amount, but would still get us going in that direction over the short term. So, well done, Brian. I appreciate you asking that, because it's a discussion that I will likely have to have, because we can't ask the employees to, and I'm just throwing out numbers, but a $300 increase in the monthly contribution in 1 year is a significant leap. So if we have to do something incrementally, there are options, but it requires approval of the board.
I'm just thinking down the road here.
Correct.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Any other questions?
You need a motion?
I would like
Oh, okay.
a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Next are committee appointments. Hold on. So first is the Solid Waste Council. Lisa Barone's term on the Solid Waste Council as DeWitt's representative is set to expire April 1st. DeWitt Charter Township wishes to reappoint Lisa as her representative for another 3-year term expiring April 1st, 2028.
So moved.
I'll second.
Perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And there's still an opening on the Tri-County Aging Advisory Council. Zach, you mentioned potentially reaching out to Dave Pohl.
Said he was not interested, so.
Is this something we could post in like the Meridian Weekly or just sort of kind of get some broader reach and get some new folks?
I can give you a name of a guy that might be interested,
Well, that's fair.
so.
Is anybody in the public interested?
Anybody what? Republic? I think Penny already has this, Russ Hicks,
Okay.
because he's on he's my old neighbor, he used to own the car. If you get that to Nicole, she can call him.
Thank you.
He's retired, he's a CPA, he's retired. He owned the car wash down on just south of 496, the quick car wash right there. He made more money doing that than he was as a CPA. So, but he's retired now, and he's on one of our committees now, but he's familiar with it, and I think he would like more to do.
Fair enough. I will reach out to him. Thank you. That's it for that agenda item. Administrators report.
I don't have anything to add, Madam Chair.
Commissioner comments. Bruce, do you have anything?
Oh, Bob's gonna touch on CapCog meeting that we had. We'll just tag team it at that time, if I have to add anything or.
Zach?
There's one things I'll share, and 2 bigger items. One, I did a tour of the jail with Sheriff Dush a couple weeks ago, just knowing that this conversation is gonna be kind of on the forefront for the next couple of months. So, I can see where the age of the building is causing them problems. I would maybe use the word falling apart, but I can see where the age is causing them some issues. To me, kind of my biggest takeaway from walk away from that, like I would be nervous if my sister and my wife worked as a front desk in that building right now. There just seems like there's a lot of weak points throughout that an inmate could pretty easily take advantage of if they wanted to. That could result in some not so great things. So I can see where there's a desire for change in some aspects of what we currently have. I don't really know what the answer to that is yet, and we'll clearly be talking about that a lot over the coming months, but it was an insightful tour, and if anybody hasn't done that, I would encourage them to just kind of get a better sense of what they're dealing with. The only other thing I'll add too, I know I've talked to some of you directly on kind of this broader goal of mine. Just looking for ways that there's things that the county can be doing if there's townships that want to take on zoning for themselves, if there's something that we can do as a county to help make that transition easier, if that's something they're interested in. I just know, kind of broadly looking at the county, our population growth is really outpacing in DeWitt and Bath compared to the rest of the county. So I think our body over the next couple of years will probably continue to become more condensed down that way. But those township units are always going to be representing that given township. So I think just kind of looking long-term, you're probably going to end up with zoning decisions that those folks in those townships might prefer if it's in the hands of the township as opposed to the county. So again, I don't know what the solution is to that front yet, but those are just kind of some personal goals of mine that I'm looking into if there's some actions that we can take as a body to make that transition easier if we have townships that are interested in that long term. So that's kind of my 2 cents for today.
Yeah, in reference to what Chair DeLonge said, CapCog is Capital Council of Governments. Steve Jeffmiga will come here one day and give an update. He is the Senior Vice President of the Lansing Regional Chamber of Commerce. That's the organization that I formed about 10 years ago. And to date, we have, in county appropriations, received $30 million for road improvements, some of which we haven't seen yet. Chandler Road from I call it East Lansing border to State Road will be redone. Hopefully they'll fill that ditch in. Don't know if they can on the east side. That's, and that is in Clayton County, by the way, and that's a nice entryway into the county. In that regard, Tri-County Regional Planning Commission, which Commissioner Andrews is on, we began a study there. They began a study at CABCOG's request to, and this is really infant, okay? It's a $150,000 study to put an interchange there at 69 and Chandler Road. If that ever happens, that whole part will grow like crazy. Certainly, I may not be here to see this happen. It's very controversial, but that's being undertaken. That'll change that whole area. In terms of housing in DeWitt Township, I had a discussion, and I live in the township, by the way. I had a discussion with their development guy, and there are 4 or 5 housing unit developments coming. I don't know when they're gonna be finished or begun in the next 5 years. It's gonna increase by 1,000 units, which means several thousand more people will probably move to the township, which will put them at 20,000 people. So it's gonna be a really large, significant change. I've lived in DeWitt for 50 years. The traffic is like, well, you're there, it's terrible. You got Airport Road, you take your life in your own hands many times.
Is that development part of the quarry coming to the west?
250 units.
Okay.
You're right on, right on. And where the shopping center, I call it the shopping center, that outlet mall, just to the east of that, as you're going down Clark Road, at some point, there'll be 450 more units there. It's gonna be, I assume, more senior type housing.
North, south?
East. Here, 69 on the north.
Yeah.
The outlet mall on the west.
Yes.
On the south would be Clark Road, and then beyond that, okay, in that area, you see they leveled it off there. Been vacant for a couple of years. Then at my favorite golf course, which Commissioner and I are gonna go to this summer, he has to give me a lot of strokes because he's younger than me. Anyway, I'm talking about Brian now, as you probably guessed. 150 units there on the golf course. If you drive by on Wood Street right now, you see they're clearing out a bunch of trees right on Wood Street from roughly where their drive goes into it, going back north again. So the population of Clayton County is gonna change. It's been sort of, we haven't put this on paper, but for the last 10 or 15 years, we've said we'd like to get a population of 100,000 people. Not because we necessarily want to have more people live here, but I have learned by many knocks on the head that the state of Michigan doesn't pay attention to you as much as they do. If you got 100,000 people, you get a better audience. It's also helped with CABCOG to get more money for our region. To date, I think CABCOG is for the 3 counties that make it up. I'm sorry, some of you don't know this. Clinton, Eaton, Ingham counties are the 3 counties. The university, we've actually gotten money for the university, believe it or not, and the Lansing Regional Chamber of Commerce. We pay a whopping $10,000 a year as our contribution. We got $30 million. I think that's a pretty good return. And in the whole region, we're on our own, we have a lobbyist, and on our own or in concert, we had something to do with the Heritage Center at the Capitol. In total, I think it's close to $500 million in governmental appropriations, not grants, not tax revenue. This is like extra cash for us. Now, the question is, why would a good conservative like myself want to take tax dollars? I think the answer is pretty obvious. Who cares? It's money that's gonna go to somebody. Why go to Detroit? Why go to Grand Rapids? We should get some of that. So all 3 counties have benefited greatly in the last 5 years from this organization. Regarding LEAP was helpful to us. Chair DeLong would be fully aware of this. There's a $3 million water sewer project between the city and Bingham Township out towards, on 21 as you're going towards 127. And Bruce is far more understanding of this than I am, but I asked him if he wanted me to talk about it, so I will. They have $2 million now. We got $1 million from, at the time, Representative Slotkin, and $1 million from the state of Michigan through Senator Singh. Unfortunately, some of our Republican colleagues weren't quite as, they didn't say no, so they agreed to it, okay? That will open that whole area up for this Meyer property for, we've heard from, LEAP has had inquiries from data storage companies. Can you imagine a huge building out there that stores data? Because, and they came to them and said, why would you come here? You don't have hurricanes, you don't have earthquakes, and the climate change isn't significant in Michigan as it would be in California. These are possibilities, not cut in stone by any means, right? So LEAP was helpful, this representative, to get us the $1 million from Representative Slotkin at the time. And CAPCOG introduced this concept to, Bruce was there. Bruce came to all those meetings. And we're trying to get some more. Now, the beautiful part is Bruce, because he's lived here all his life, I did for a lot of mine, with his relationships with the township of Bingham and the city, getting them slowly but surely together to understand they need to form a utilities authority. That would be water and sewer. If they ever do that, that whole area will just take right off, which is good for us. But no offense to my Democratic colleagues, solar and wind turbines don't make me any money. Buildings do. And regarding our tax revenue, I'm not trying to be prejudicial on the tax classes, but who's paying us the most, right? I'm not looking at what it is or who it is, it's who's paying us the most. At this juncture, residential growth, residential tax class pays 72% of our income tax, of our property tax. So when we talk about residential growth, it's not because I want more people, they pay me. And you know what? You know we get out from industrial growth, 1.69%. I don't want to sound like a curmudgeon. I don't care if we ever get another factory here, because we have to give all the money away to get it. The only time I would say I agree with getting a factory here is the Glanbia milk plant. That was a $750 million investment that LEAP got for us. Every dairy farmer in Clinton County hugely benefits because he or she does not have to spend as much money for fuel as they would if they got to ship it out of state. And all of my good friends in the crop business who sell feed for cows, their market expanded greatly because every dairyman I know here says, we need more cows. So it's just growing. So it's had a huge impact on the agricultural community. A lot of people don't know that. And we gave our taxes away to get this. So if I hear and I have a lot of family in the agriculture business, when they say, well, the county doesn't do anything for us, don't tell me that. We did a lot for you. We gave up millions of dollars so you could get more money for yourself. That's what we're supposed to do, right? As opposed to some car factory. I don't want car factories. That don't do us any good. We don't make any money. The next, just so you know this, I pulled this off of our equalization report. I'm not making this up, right? I have no reason to. The entire agricultural segment of the county pays me 8% of my entire property tax. 8%. Mickey D's is 12%. All the commercial property. It's on page 9. If you're interested, go onto our website, it's page 9, you can read it. Those of you who are more financially involved. So having more growth residentially would be the goal. And currently, the way our what's the right word, economic development stance is, it's not written down, is we say to LEAP, we don't want factories in Duplain. We don't want factories in Elsie. We want houses or something that's going to benefit the residents there, which will benefit us big time, okay? That's an important thing. Now, as terms of what let me explain CAPCOG part of it. We ask all the municipalities of any size, you gotta be big enough to even have a legislative appropriation ask, right? To give us a list of projects that they probably can't get funded any other way other than ask their people for more millage. To give us numbers. Road Commission is highly involved in this as well, but they give us numbers. So this year for Clinton County, St. John's is asking for, please, Chair, chip in here, or jump in here if I'm wrong, $6 million for projects, $4 million to redo the, what was that?
Oh, they want to redo the water and sewer lines that are along 21, because we've been scheduled for M21 rebuild through MDOT, and they keep postponing it. They have a large project they need to replace what's underneath 21. I mean, even after they paved it recently, the city's had a couple of water main breaks on 21. They've had to dig it up. It's gonna continue until they replace it. Also, they're requested for some funds to tear down the old silos that were left downtown at the north end there. Probably clear it for future development.
Something I'm going to praise the chair for, I don't have to because this is my last term. So tell the good Republicans and Democrats this is Showers' last term. I'll be 80 years old. I ain't gonna be a politician anymore, okay? So I wanna see it in the Republican newsletter. Oh, Showers is gonna resign. No, I'm not resigning unless I'm dead. 4 years, I'll be an old man. Anybody who's 80 years old should not be doing this, any job in politics anyway. We have, this is what Bruce has been able to do. And you don't get any credit for it, and he should. Because of his involvement with CAPCOG, we went to Senator Singh's office, and by the way, we put our suit and ties on. We go to the Republican and Democratic legislators to lobby through CAPCOG. I don't care what your title is, or if you're a Democrat or Republican. If you got money from my county, I'll take it, okay? And there are no attachments to it. They don't ask us for some favor towards their particular political position. It doesn't matter to us. That's not what we're there for. We asked Senator Singh, he asked St. John's what they needed, and they needed 21 to be resurfaced because it was terrible in a lot of parts through town here, right? So we're sitting in Senator Singh's office, and we were there with the mayor and the city manager, and we said, what do you need? Well, our road's a mess. So through Senator Singh's connections at MDOT, got them what, $400,000 through our road commission to resurface this road, even though it's temporary until 2029 when they actually gut it out and redo the whole thing. I don't know if he ever got any credit for it. You should. I know I can say what I want now because I'm not the chair anymore. The city manager is not exactly the most collegiate kind of guy. So he wouldn't admit it, but we did him a huge favor by getting that money for this road because it was terrible, right? So that's what CAPCOG does. There isn't any money in it for us in the sense of, we're not looking for notoriety or kudos, good old boy. That's not what it's about. So we're actually helping the people of Clayton County, and that's what they do there. The city of DeWitt, and by the way, all the years I was chair, I had never asked the city of DeWitt what they wanted for me to get from CAPCOG. I don't have that reservation anymore. They're looking for $3 million to do a water and sewer line. Now, what I need you to understand is we have, and the other two counties have their asks as well. I don't know whether we'll get a dime or not. It depends upon the day of the week, what the weather's like. Legislators, Commissioner Hurtican knows this, a legislator today says he or she thinks this is important and tomorrow something else, right? So depending upon what day of the week you hit them and what the current social issue or cultural issue is, you may or may not get money. So that's kind of the way it works. So we have no way of knowing we get all of it or none of it. But if we don't try, we won't get any. I think that's important to know. So things are looking good. I think this year our ask for the three counties is around 70 million. Is that close?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the Maple Rapids Bridge on that list?
It is not. It doesn't qualify. Let me explain. And you know what, you've been through all that already. The bridge in Maple Rapids, because it doesn't get enough traffic, can't meet the minimal criteria for MDOT to do anything about it. Our friend Mr. Fair, he thinks he's going to solve all the problems. And Commissioner Rudet got into, there's no fault in here, he got in the middle of a situation which he and I talked about it. Catalyst doesn't like us, and you know what? I really don't care if they like us or not. They're useless as can be. They do nothing. I told Mr. Fair years ago, don't come and bug us about joining your organization. You have nothing to offer. And he doesn't. So he's trying to go to the legislature, get money. I've been wrong many times in my life. I may be wrong now, but I don't think they're ever going to see that money. It has been on our list, but when we were asked, MDOT says it doesn't qualify. The road commission attempted to get it as well, and they were told it doesn't qualify. The bridge belongs to the village of Maple Rapids. And it's an important thing to get done, so won't give up on it, okay? I want you
Because,
to.
I mean, if that bridge goes out, that's gonna be really detrimental to
Terrible.
Maple Rapids, so.
Absolutely.
I don't care where we get the money from, but I wanna find money for that bridge. so.
Absolutely, absolutely. I suggested to the president that they have a millage. That met with much resistance of his own. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. I love all these, I love our rural areas. I realize from the past politically, solar arrays and wind turbines have been controversial. I was asked by a township supervisor, who will go nameless, actually asked me one time after a meeting, does Clinton County want solar arrays for the increased taxes? And I said, no. And under my breath, I said, people out there, I said, hell no, I don't want those. What do I want that for? I said, in fact, I'm tired of people coming here crabbing at us about them. We had nothing to do with it. We did not design them. We didn't ask for them. We haven't marketed them. That is not what we do. So I said, I'd rather have as many houses as I can, or condos or whatever, because that's where the money's gonna come from. And that's why I asked the question about whether there is a place we can find out how many of these projects have been funded. I don't know. But to be clear, for the audience who's crazy enough to watch this whole thing for the last 3 hours, you're better than me. We have nothing to do with marketing solar arrays or turbines. Now, I'm gonna tell you something, because I've been around here a long time. I remember 15 years ago when wind turbines were the hot issue. And we had three general law townships, Bengal, Dallas, and I forgot, the third was Essex. They were gonna have 130 wind turbines. We had nothing to do with that. And so they all left us zoning wise, which is their right, no problem, right? 2 years ago, the Bengal Township Board, if I remember correctly, said, well, we're okay with 6% of our ground being used for solar arrays. And I said, don't give me that crazy stuff, at least you can grow corn under them. So regardless of your politics, whoever's got the most money, that's the people who are gonna get the note. But we have no interest as a county in developing more tax revenue for solar arrays. If it comes, it comes. If a landowner wants to rent his or her land to a green energy company, that's his or her business, not mine. We're not involved in that. And I think people need to understand that the county is not a bad guy here. Now, I'm gonna make one more comment about Eagle Township. We had absolutely nothing to do with the proposed chip plant that was gonna come there. We were the agency, John, I don't mean to bore you here, but it's been on my mind for a number of years. Yes, you do. For a number of years, we had nothing to do with that. That came from the MEDC directly to the Eagle Township Board of Trustees. And at that time, we were acting as their agent for planning and zoning. That's all we did. And someone who I came to like very much, Corey Felposh, she even understood that we weren't the ones that bring it there. So I would mirror what Zach says. If you want to protect yourself, because when I'm going, guys, the district I'm in is going to be a real Democrat. It is right now. And I only won because I've lived here for 50 years. And I'm a Republican. Zach made a real good point. You may want to consider taking that over, because otherwise, in 10 years, you may not have any control anymore at all. So it might be wise to consider doing your own. So that's up to Zach. He's working on that. Thank you for letting me go on for a while, but I wanted you to understand that, and all of you guys, I'm tickled you're here. You new guys, because you understand money. A lot of people don't understand where the money comes from. You do. And that's why when I'm long gone, you'll still say, hey, being conservative with the money makes sense. So thank you for letting me go on. I'll try not to do that anymore.
Thank you. You're good then?
Well, it depends if my wife had a question. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, so, you needed to know that. You had no history with this before. You didn't know what was going on here 5 years ago. You do now. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you for the history. Ronnie, do you have anything?
I'm just gonna keep this really brief. Friday, I did take a tour of the jail, and I spoke with the sheriff and also the jail administrator. And the jail is old. There are some safety concerns in that jail that were not only pointed out to me, but I actually saw myself and asked questions. I do have a lot more questions about that. I'm not sure what the future holds. There is talk about building a new jail or a redesign of the current jail, or what sort of improvements, what sort of priorities, you know, if you have a list of 10 priorities, what is that to reconfigure the new jail to make it workable? I'm not for sure how to approach this right now. I have a lot more questions, follow up, maybe even do another second tour to get more information. The other thing is I went downstairs and I looked at the gym downstairs. And I'm a little concerned when I see the ceiling down there and concrete chunks falling. I'm not for sure what's going on with the building structurally down there. It looks like when I looked up, there was quite a bit of rust on some of the steel support down there. I've been involved in projects at a very large scale with building, and I'm a little concerned about that integrity or that portion of the building down there, and if that's gonna be reopened or not. And, but anyways, I do work out, so I was considering working out down there, and my new renewal of my membership is coming up, because I'm part of that January to March club, you know, annually. So, and where I wanted to pull the trigger. But anyways, I've done that. I've also attended several meetings. I'm going to be meeting with the director of Capital City Airport, International Airport. And I've also been to several township meetings. That would be Olive, Riley, my hometown Watertown, and also DeWitt Township. I do want to relate to the board. I did hear from DeWitt Township Board of Trustee, or actually supervisor, really gave some kudos to our board. He says he's really hearing a lot of good things. He really likes the changes, or the community likes the changes. And there were actually members in the audience that also said that they really liked some of the changes and what they're hearing and how this board is, what it's become, the new board. So I just want to pass that along. Other than that, I'm good.
All right, I just have one thing that touches on the planning and zoning from a township level. I did ask around, and there are a few of the townships in District 1 that the thought of taking it on themselves is overwhelming. They'd be willing to pay, but they want to say, and they also want to know what their utilization is. They want to know how much they're using the service, as well as, you know, what does the department efficiency look like? There have been some significant changes. They want to make sure that department's working very well for them to pay in on it. So I just wanted to share that, and that's all I have. Now, no one else speaks, right? We're good? Is this good? We're good here? Everyone's good? Okay. Meeting adjourned. Wait, any other business? Any other business? Going once, going twice. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.